Chapter 859. Elvis smiled devilishly and charged towards Cole without a second word. Beat him up. Other than "I love you," this was Elvis's favorite sentence to hear Gu Mingming say. Especially when the target was Cole, that was simply, his sharp claws and fangs were already unbearably hungry. However, facing Elvis's lethal attack, not only did Cole not retaliate, he did not even have any intention of dodging. He just had a sly smile on his face as if he was playing into my hands. Indeed, the feeling was not right. Elvis did not have the time to see what had happened and only felt that his fist had hit something, but it was definitely not Cole. A black shadow flew out from Elvis's attack and landed in a corner with a thud. Looking over, it was Qixuan. That tiny body kept twitching and blood spurted out of his mouth. He was on the verge of death, but he raised his head and stared at Elvis warily. It was as if Elvis dared to attack Cole again, he would pounce on Elvis without a care for his own life. Gu Mingming panicked the moment she saw Qixuan. Elvis had used all his strength in his attack on Cole. If it had been a direct hit, Cole's head would have been severed from his neck. The tiny Qixuan had not evolved yet. How could he withstand the 5th level Elvis's punch? "Leah, hurry!" Gu Mingming rushed towards Qixuan without a second word. She wanted to hug him but did not dare to touch him. I wonder if his bones are broken? Were his internal organs all right? She had seen first aid attempts on television. It was not wise to move a severely injured patient as it could cause a second injury. Gu Mingming knelt beside Qixuan. Her heart ached so much that tears streamed down her face. She could not wipe them clean no matter how hard she tried. Her sons were her flesh and blood. Especially Qixuan, who had suffered more than the other 3. Her guilt towards Qixuan had already reached its peak and suffocated her. Now it was like a flash flood that could not be stopped. Leah knew how much Gu Mingming cared for Qixuan and naturally did not dare to be negligent. But the moment he approached, Qixuan bared his teeth and took a defensive stance. He even pulled at his own wounds and struggled to stand up. "You think I care?" Elvis's cold and sinister voice came from above her head. Gu Mingming was stunned for a moment. She understood that Qixuan must have said something while whimpering. Her heart ached for her son's injuries and she was anxious to know what he had said, so she could not help but vent her anger on Elvis. "Why are you so fierce? My son is injured, why are you yelling at him?" Elvis gritted his teeth and clenched his fists tightly, refusing to speak. "What did he say? Tell me, what does he want? Did he say that he was in pain? Did he say that he was in pain?" Gu Mingming was on the verge of breaking down. She really wanted to give herself 2 tight slaps. She should not have allowed Elvis to attack Cole. She clearly knew that Qixuan was in Cole's hands, so what if he teased her a little? Why couldn't she just endure it? Elvis pulled Gu Mingming into his arms, allowing her to pounce and behave atrociously in his arms. He glared at Qixuan and let out a few low whimpers, replying to Qixuan's words using the way wolves communicate. Chapter 860. Cole took 2 steps forward and squatted down, shielding half of his chest behind Gu Mingming. He placed one broken hand on Gu Mingming's shoulder and the other on the hand Gu Mingming was using to stroke Qixuan's head. He smiled at Qixuan. "Little Shen, be good. Don't be afraid. Your mother and I will stay by your side. She won't leave and neither will I. However, you have to get well soon. Don't let your mother worry because if she does, our hearts will ache, won't it?" Qixuan nodded obediently. He looked at Gu Mingming expectantly as if waiting for her reply. This gaze forced Gu Mingming to resist the urge to fling Cole away. Discomfort spread from the places he touched and nausea spread throughout her entire body. But Gu Mingming didn't want Qixuan to be upset. She clenched her teeth and forced a smile. She comforted Qixuan. "Be good. Mother will accompany you." "Oro will." Qixuan called out weakly again. Gu Mingming didn't understand what he was saying. She turned to look at Elvis, only to see that his face was so black that ink could drip from it. He gritted his teeth and glared at Qixuan. "Don't push your luck." Gu Mingming frowned and looked at Leah. Lee's expression didn't look too good but he didn't say a word. Left with no choice, Gu Mingming looked at Cole. Cole chuckled. "Children are just a little willful. Moreover, you were the one who beat him up. Shouldn't you satisfy his willfulness and make up for your mistake?" "I forgot." Mighty Elvis has always believed in the principle of, the strong get all the benefits. He won't give in even to a cub that Agu cares so much about. With that, Cole turned to look at Qixuan with a stern expression. "Little Shen, don't be rude to Mighty Elvis. He is your mother's first partner. If you act like this, your mother will be put in a difficult position." Qixuan sniffled pitifully and whimpered. Gu Mingming didn't expect Elvis and Leah to translate for her. She just looked at Cole. What is my son saying? Cole smiled, his gaze light as he said, Little Xian is afraid of Sir Elvis and Sir Leah, so he hopes that the two of them can leave. Although it was just a child spouting nonsense, Lord Elvis's punch almost took Xianer's life. Agu should empathize with Xianer's fear. After all, he was still a child. Just take it as a child's words. Gu Mingming felt extremely uncomfortable. Damn it, Cole's words made it seem as if he was Qixuan's biological father and Elvis was an outsider. I don't need you to apologize for my son. Gu Mingming's displeasure was written all over her face. Cole wasn't annoyed. He just lowered his head and said, I have crossed the line. But if you must punish someone, please punish me. Qixuan, can't take any more torture now. Gu Mingming wanted to hit someone. Cole's words meant that Elvis's biological father and her biological mother had tortured Qixuan? But Qixuan's injuries were indeed caused by Elvis. Damn it, I don't even have the right to retort. This F***ket up situation. Gu Mingming didn't want to continue talking nonsense with Cole. She shrugged off his arm and then said to Qixuan in a gentle voice, Qixuan, be good. Let Daddy Leah take a look at your injuries, alright? Chapter 861. In the face of a willful child, parents could only compromise. Because they dared to hurt themselves to coerce you, and you were never as heartless as you claimed to be. You could really watch them die and then calmly collect their corpses. Gu Mingming immediately relented the moment Qixuan struggled. Yes, that's right. Doting mothers often spoil their children, but so what? The dying man in front of her was her son, her biological son. Turning around, Gu Mingming's eyes were filled with tears. She looked at Elvis and Leah and said, You two can leave first and return to the stone house we used to stay in temporarily. Elvis did not move, he just frowned and looked at her. I'm begging you. Gu Mingming sobbed, her heart aching at the sight of Qixuan's injuries. Clenching his fists tightly, Elvis's final compromise was to wait for her outside the door. Gu Mingming nodded. She would not force Qixuan to stay away. She would be satisfied as long as Qixuan's emotions could calm down. After Elvis and Leah left, Qixuan shifted his little head and rested his chin on Gu Mingming's knee. He closed his eyes and groaned, clearly in extreme pain. Cole gently wiped away Gu Mingming's tears with his fingers, then placed it into his mouth to taste it. He smiled faintly and said, Salty? Are you a pervert? Gu Mingming blocked Cole's hand that was reaching towards her again with a look of disgust. Cole lowered his head to look at Qixuan before looking up at Gu Mingming. He sighed softly. I have already instructed someone to call Dylan over to treat little Xian. Don't worry too much. I won't let anything happen to Xian or... Gu Mingming stared coldly at Cole. I really don't know what kind of magic potion you fed Qixuan, that he would actually risk his life to protect you. Bewitching potion. If I really had that kind of thing, shouldn't I give it to you first? Cole continued smiling and did not take Gu Mingming's sarcastic words to heart. He was like a pampered female who indulged herself. No matter what she said, it seemed like she was flirting with him. How? Qixuan, who was in her arms, called out softly, immediately attracting all her attention. The most annoying thing was that she couldn't understand what her son was saying. If not for the fact that she was worried about Qixuan's serious injuries, she would have immediately gone to sleep and find that lonely old man to discuss things with. She could at least call him father and ask him to give her a language cheat code. He had to bring a translator with him when he was talking to his own son. How humiliating was that? Cole noticed the gloomy look on Gu Mingming's face and for some reason, he was in a good mood. Rubbing Qixuan's little head, he said, Little Xian, don't be afraid. It's not that your mother doesn't like me and doesn't want to leave us. Woo-woo, Qixuan's gaze was a little unfocused as he looked up at Gu Mingming, looking so pitiful that it made one's heart ache. Agu, don't let little Xian worry, alright? Cole's brows were slightly furrowed as he pleaded sincerely. There was no need for a translation. Gu Mingming understood what Qixuan had been sobbing about just by listening to Cole's words. But she really did not understand why were the four little ones and Elvis so incompatible, treating outsiders better than the other? Especially this Cole, gritting her teeth, Gu Mingming could not argue with her severely injured son. Even if she wanted to educate him, she had to wait until he recovered. Chapter 862. Qixuan seemed to have received a satisfactory answer before he slowly closed his eyes. Gu Mingming was instinctively worried about Qixuan's action of closing his eyes. He had already been unconscious for a long time. How long would he sleep for? Cole held Gu Mingming's hand gently. Don't worry, he will be fine. Gu Mingming glared at Cole coldly. She was filled with disgust and wariness. She struggled a few times but was unable to retract her hand. Instead, her large movements dragged Qixin, who was lying on her knees. That little cub was in so much pain that he shut his eyes tightly and whimpered. Seeing that Gu Mingming had given up struggling, Cole's smile deepened. In your eyes, I am probably the worst person in this world, right? Gu Mingming was unwilling to respond to Cole. She just gently wiped away the blood at the side of Qixuan's mouth. There were no visible external injuries, but his internal organs must have been injured. Otherwise, why would he be vomiting blood? Cole did not care about Gu Mingming's lack of response. He continued. You are the messenger of the beast deity. You are the most righteous and bright person in this world. I am the leader of the stray beast. I am the darkest and evilest person in this world. Since both of us do not wish for anything to happen to little Xian, he will definitely be safe. Isn't that so? Gu Mingming glared at Cole coldly. You do not wish for anything to happen to him, yet you let him be your meat shield? Don't treat me like a fool. Do you dare to say that you did not predict that Qixin would rush out so you purposely did not dodge Elvis's attack? Cole chuckled. If I say that I did not dodge because you wanted to see him beat me up, would you believe me? No. Gu Mingming replied. Cole lowered his head. His expression could not be seen clearly. He just said softly, Gu. I thought that after meeting Peter and Natalie, you would at least understand me a little better. Gu Mingming frowned. She looked at Cole as if he was an idiot. Cole heaved a deep sigh of relief. He laughed self-deprecatingly. Forget it. I know you do not like to hear about me. I will not bother you. You just have to accompany little Xian. He hasn't seen you for a long time. Although he doesn't say it, I know that he misses you very much. Gu Mingming didn't reply and neither did Cole. The two of them just sat there quietly until the door to the stone castle was pushed open. Dylan walked in with steady steps. He looked at Cole but didn't say a word. Then he bowed to Gu Mingming and without saying a word, he walked to Qixuan's side and started treating him. Dylan's attitude towards Cole surprised Gu Mingming. She had thought that with Cole's vengeful personality, Dylan would be the first to suffer when he returned this time. She had thought that with Cole's vengeful personality, Dylan would be the first to suffer. After all, it was Dylan who had helped Gu Mingming and Leah to pull Cole down from his position as the leader of the Messenger's tribe to become a stray beast. He had even lost his tail and an arm. But who would have thought that when the two of them met again, they would be so strangely calm? Cole stood beside Gu Mingming and chuckled. Are you surprised that I didn't kill him? Gu Mingming didn't reply. She just stared at Qixin. Her heart was completely captivated by this son of hers. Cole glanced sideways at Gu Mingming quietly. You obtained the kiss of the ocean, right? Gu Mingming replied with a mm. She didn't want to waste any more time talking to Cole. Chapter 863. Give it to me. Cole stretched out his hand with his palm facing up, placing it in front of Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming glanced sideways at Cole warily. Cole chuckled and asked, Are you afraid that if I use the kiss of the ocean to activate the Beast King bloodline, Elvis and Leah will be in danger? Gu Mingming raised her brows and thought to herself, this Cole really knows a lot of things. Even a witch doctor like Leah did not know that the 7 treasures could activate the Beast King's bloodline, but Cole was so clear about it. Cole maintained his smile from start to finish, neither cold nor warm. He maintained an appropriate level of propriety, neither too intimate nor too distant. He maintained it at a level where Gu Mingming had no reason to fly into a rage but could not easily ignore it. He said, No matter what, I have been the leader of Sauter for more than 10 years, it's not surprising that I know these things. Cole took a deep breath and raised his head. I have been at the peak of the 5th level for more than 10 years. With my abilities, I should be able to control the kiss of the ocean. If I really wanted to use it to activate the Beast King bloodline, would you still be willing to give it to me? Gu Mingming remained silent for a moment before chuckling. Why wouldn't I? This is what we agreed on. I'll gather everything for you, and you'll return my son to me. As for how you spend the ransom, that's your business. It has nothing to do with me. Cole closed in on Gu Mingming and looked into her eyes playfully. Aren't you afraid that I will kill your precious partner after I become the Beast King? Gu Mingming looked up and did not avoid Cole's gaze at all. She returned it with a sharp and cold stare. Don't forget I am also a Beast King. Unless I die, no one can harm my mate. Cole straightened his back and widened the distance between him and Gu Mingming. With a teasing smile, he said, So don't worry, I am not using the kiss of the ocean for myself. After all, if my opponent is you, I won't be able to fight at all. Gu Mingming scoffed at Cole's words and did not intend to give any response. Cole continued, you should have realized that the kiss of the ocean can absorb toxins from the body. It's effective on you and it's the same for Qixuan. So, I will use this treasure on Qixuan. Gu Mingming was stunned. How did he know that the kiss of the ocean would be effective on her? Could it be that Cole even knew about her time with Elvis and Saint Nazaire? Wasn't this too fantastical? After all, only Elvis and Gu Mingming were present at that time. She did not believe that Elvis would share such a thing with Cole. Cole could see the doubt in Gu Mingming's eyes, but he did not answer her. He just smiled and said, can you give it to me now? If we have that, I believe Xin Er's injuries will heal a little faster. Gu Mingming retracted her gaze from Cole's face. When she turned to look at Qixuan, she realized that Dylan had already finished the basic treatment. Gu Mingming. Gu Qixuan Qi her and to Gu King Qixuan Gu Mingming is up. Gu of. Try to avoid doing too much, especially not letting him get hurt again. Oh, and try to keep him calm and peaceful. This way he will recover faster. Then this subordinate will take his leave. Chapter 864. Gu Mingming didn't say a word and just watched Dylan's departing figure. The people around her were starting to treat her with respect and distance. She had to get used to this kind of relationship. After all, she was the messenger of the beast deity, a high and lonely position. Not everyone could resist the external and internal pressure and still look at her the same way they used to. Cole's disdainful gaze at Dylan was cold and the smile on his lips was tinged with malice. Because he was Agu's man, he stayed. But it seemed like he was wrong. In this world I am the only one who can make Agu unhappy. So you are really an eyesore. Cole made a low sound in his throat as if he was clearing his throat because he was not feeling well. Gu Mingming didn't care. Why would she care about Cole's life? But she didn't know that her momentary disappointment and indifference had caused Dylan, who had once helped her, to never appear again. After using the beast language code to give orders to the stray beasts hiding in the dark, Cole accompanied Gu Mingming and sat beside Qixuan. He caressed Qixuan's body and observed Gu Mingming's reaction from the corner of his eye. After confirming that she didn't notice anything amiss, he reached out his hand and said, give me the kiss of the ocean. You also wish for little Xian to get better soon, don't you? Gu Mingming took out the black pearl from her pocket and handed it to Cole. Cole was a little surprised. He played with the black pearl in his hand and smiled. So this is the kiss of the ocean. With that, Cole plucked a strand of his hair and pinched it lightly. That strand of hair was as straight as a silver needle. Gu Mingming was a little surprised. She was a beast king, right? Why didn't she know such a perverted skill? Snake's memories didn't mention that it could be used like this. Cole gladly accepted the flash of surprise in Gu Mingming's eyes. That was a rare emotion she gave him other than disgust and wariness. He naturally cherished it. The index finger and thumb of one hand were pinching the black pearl, while the index finger and thumb of the other hand were pinching one end of the hair. Slowly and gently, the hair was inserted directly into the pearl and went through it. Cole tied the black pearl around Qixuan's neck. Then he pried open his mouth and placed the black pearl in his mouth for him to hold. Nudging Qixuan's lower jaw gently to prevent the pearl from falling out, Cole rubbed Qixuan's head reluctantly. He turned to look at Gu Mingming. All right, with this kiss of the ocean, the poison in little Xian's body will no longer act up. So, I can no longer use Xin Er to threaten you. So, are you going to kill me now? Gu Mingming frowned, feeling that things were not so simple. Would Cole be so kind? How could she not believe it? If you are willing to return Qixuan to me, I can let bygones be bygones. I will be my messenger of the beast deity and you will be your stray beast king. We will mind our own business and live in harmony. Let bygones be bygones? Cole chuckled helplessly. If that's the case, I might not be able to return little Xian to you. I want to be the most special existence in Agu's heart. If I can't especially like and love him, then I will especially hate and loathe him. Aside from the topic, March would be over in 10 days. Susu was working hard to save her manuscript. She needed motivation. For example, tickets. Chapter 865. Gu Mingming stepped in between Cole and Qixuan and raised her head. Sorry, I already know. Now that Qixuan is fine, do you think you still have the ability to snatch him away from me? Cole stood at his original spot without moving. How do you know that he won't want me no matter what after he wakes up? Gu Mingming frowned. Her heart felt stifled. She could not deny that as his biological mother, she did not spend as much time with Qixin as Cole. She always had various matters to settle and would often leave her sons to Sandy to take care of. As for her as a mother, she really did not seem to be a competent one. As for Cole, he had been by Qixuan's side day and night ever since he had brought him along. He was still a child after all. His thirst for familial love was so strong. It was her negligence that had given Cole a chance. Judging from how he had blocked Elvis's attack for Cole without any regard for his own safety, it was obvious that his need for familial love had reached a certain level. He would definitely look for him after he wakes up. She could easily kill Cole now. But what would happen after that? How would she deal with the psychological damage she had caused to Qixin? She had neglected him and failed to provide him with companionship. Then she had deprived him of the consolation he had found. Clenching her fists, Gu Mingming's eyes were filled with anger. Cole lowered his head. It's that gaze, the way he only looks at me. It makes my heart beat faster. Gu Mingming took 2 deep breaths and suppressed the irritation in her heart. She said, "Before I change my mind, get lost from my sight." Cole nodded and placed his right hand on his left chest. "Yes, my beloved mistress." With that, his gaze swept across the unconscious Qixin. Without any hesitation he turned to leave. The moment he left, Elvis and Leah walked in together. Leah was the first to check on Qixuan's injuries. After all, he was much better at handling such things than Dylan. Elvis held Gu Mingming in his arms and rubbed his chin against the top of her head. Seeing that she was safe and sound, he finally relaxed. "I clearly know that he has no ability to hurt you, but I still can't help but worry. Xiaoming, as long as I can't see you, I will feel uneasy as though I will lose you. Can you not disappear from my sight again?" Gu Mingming pressed her face against Elvis's chest and listened to his breathing and heartbeat. After a while she said, "Cole gave the kiss of the ocean to Qixin. The poison in Qixuan's body will no longer act up." She looked up at Elvis and asked, "Hubby, did I do something wrong?" Elvis frowned, his heart aching for the sadness in Gu Mingming's eyes. Gu Mingming's cold, unyielding facade against Cole was completely removed in front of Elvis. She was soft and sensitive, full of guilt towards Qixin. "I seem to have endless things to deal with every day, but I always throw my sons to the back of my mind. If I had been by their side, Cole would not have had the chance to take advantage of me." She took advantage of the fact that Qixin needed to be concerned about her. "I didn't give my sons enough love to support their growth. I should have realized this when Burke appeared, but, hubby, I really wonder if I'm a bad mother?" Chapter 866. But, Cole has always been good at manipulating people's hearts. No matter what he says to you, he must have an ulterior motive. If you let him manipulate you, you will fall into his trap. Xiaoming, you must believe in yourself and our sons. They are wolves, not sheep reared in captivity. They need to be trained to grow sharp fangs and claws. Believe in our sons? Gu Mingming's eyes welled up with tears at Elvis's words. "I thought you didn't like them." Gu Mingming sobbed. Elvis kissed Gu Mingming's tears away and placed her in his arms. "They are flesh that fell from your body. How can I not like them?" "But, Xiaoming, what drives one forward is never the faint light in the darkness, but the bottomless abyss behind them. They were born in our family and are destined to have an extraordinary life. If they are not strong and mature, not only will they put themselves in danger, they will also implicate their families and even the tribe to struggle with them in this muddy whirlpool. Sometimes being heartless is also a form of love. Do you understand?" Gu Mingming nodded in a daze. She wiped away her tears and said, "You understand the rules of survival in the beast world better than me. I believe that your decision is logical. But hubby, my heart still aches for them." Elvis kissed Gu Mingming's brow. "It's all right. I will be in charge of the darkness and cruelty. You will be in charge of caring and gentleness. If you want to care for them, do it. If you want to protect them, do it. If you quarrel with me because of them, it's all right too. Anyway, I will give in to you. I will train them into outstanding wolves without making you feel guilty towards them. No one will be able to use them to threaten you anymore. Is that okay?" Gu Mingming nodded her head heavily before replying, "Yeah." Under Li's care, Qixuan's body recovered very well. That night, Gu Mingming asked Elvis to fetch the 3 little ones from Sandy's house. She decided that it was better for her own sons to be taken care of by herself. 3 days later, Qixin slowly opened his eyes. Whimpering weakly, Gu Mingming hurried to his side and gently stroked his little head to comfort him. "Qixin, you're awake? That's great. My sons are so brave. Do you want some water? Or do you want to eat something?" Daddy Leah has prepared some meat porridge that is easier to digest. Do you want some? Qixin obediently allowed Gu Mengmeng to stroke him. He blinked a few times to adjust to the light and his eyes started darting around, obviously looking for something. Gu Mengmeng's heart skipped a beat, clearly feeling uneasy. How do you know that he won't want me after he wakes up? Cole's words circled around Gu Mengmeng's ears. Gu Mengmeng didn't even need anyone to translate for her to easily understand the beast language that Qixin was hiding in his throat. He was looking for Cole. Qixin, Mama will accompany you, okay? Gu Mengmeng gently wrapped her arms around Qixuan's neck and gently kissed his little head. Mummy promises that I will never abandon you guys again. No matter where I go, I will bring the four of you with me. So, forgive Mummy for my negligence in the past and give Mummy a chance to change, alright? Qixin nodded. Chapter 867. Qixin had to recuperate for half a month. Elvis and Leah discussed that they would not have enough time to stock up on food if they rushed back to St. Nazaire now, so they could only spend the winter in Sauder. So while Qixin was recuperating, Leah was responsible for staying at home to take care of Gu Mengmeng and Qixin, while Elvis brought the three little ones out to hunt. The four of them carried back piles of prey every day. On this day the air was extremely cold. Gu Mengmeng could sense that winter had arrived. Leah went up to the second floor of the stone castle to retrieve a beast skin to seal the windows, while Gu Mengmeng sat beside Qixin, gently caressing his little head and speaking gently to him from time to time. Suddenly Qixin stood up. Before Gu Mengmeng could rejoice at Qixuan's recovery, he suddenly leapt up and dashed towards the door. Qixin! Gu Mengmeng exclaimed. Qixin paused in his steps and turned to look at Gu Mengmeng deeply. That look seemed to be saying goodbye. Gu Mengmeng wanted to chase after him, but Qixin dashed out the door without looking back. At that moment, large snowflakes fell from the sky, blurring their vision and the road ahead. It also blurred Gu Mengmeng's footsteps. How ironic. The first time she understood her son's intentions was when he turned around. He did not say anything, but Gu Mengmeng knew very well that Qixin had gone to look for Cole. Sitting paralyzed on the ground, Gu Mengmeng covered her face and cried silently. When Leah heard the commotion downstairs and rushed downstairs, he only saw Gu Mengmeng sitting at the door, crying pitifully. Qixin was already nowhere to be seen. Without needing to ask, Leah knew what had happened. Hugging Gu Mengmeng and patting her back, Leah comforted her gently. Qixin is Cole's biggest bargaining chip against you. He will not let anything happen to Qixin. Gu Mengmeng hugged Lee's arm and buried her face in his chest. She knew that Cole would not let anything happen to Qixin. She was crying because Qixuan's resolute back view was like a sharp sword piercing through her heart. Cole's words, "How do you know that he will not insist on me after he wakes up?" From the start, Gu Mengmeng had been living in fear of losing Qixin. And that look from Qixin, it was as if he was saying, "Mummy, I'm sorry. Goodbye, Mum." Between her and Cole, her Qixin had chosen Cole. It wasn't because of the poison, he wasn't forced. Cole didn't even appear in front of him during this period of time. But in Qixuan's heart, Cole was already more important than his own mother. Gu Mengmeng felt as if her throat was being gripped tightly by someone. No matter how hard she tried to breathe, she still felt suffocated. She had lost Qixin, she had really lost Qixin. That feeling was as if someone had used a knife to forcefully cut out a piece of flesh from her heart, causing blood to spurt out. When Elvis and the three little ones returned, Gu Mengmeng had already cried herself to sleep. Leah handed Gu Mengmeng, whose eyes were swollen like peaches, to Elvis. He sighed and said, "How about I go look for her?" Elvis shook his head and said, "If he has his eyes set on Cole, even if you kidnap him back, he will still run away again. Forget it, let him be. My son Elvis can be responsible for his own life." Since that was the path he wanted to walk, even his parents had no right to stop him. As for Xiaomeng, Chapter 868. When Gu Mengmeng woke up, she realized there were three little ones lying beside her. Why were they lying down? Because they were all in their beast forms. This was very strange, they rarely revealed their beast forms after evolving into half-orcs. Gu Mengmeng was a little worried. She hugged her sons and asked in a hoarse voice, "What's wrong with you guys? Are you feeling unwell?" The little wolves shook their heads and licked Gu Mengmeng's face. They howled and acted coquettishly. Winter is here and their ability to resist the cold is not enough. So their beast forms are the most comfortable and warmest for them. Elvis explained for his sons before carrying Gu Mengmeng up from the pile of little wolves. He kissed her little hand and continued, "Do you want to play in the snow?" Elvis remembered that at this time last year, Gu Mingming pestered him to go for a walk in the snow. She said something like, "During the first snowfall, I want to walk in the snow with the person I like. Because as I walk, my hair will turn white." At that time he was worried that her body was too weak and could not take it, so he rejected her. In the end, he could not stand her coaxing and pestering and finally brought her out. In the end, she fell sick when they returned, but it was also that illness that gave him the chance to mate with her. Now, her body was still petite, but she had Snake's Beast King powers. Resisting the cold was no longer a problem, but she could not be as carefree as a child as she was last year. Gu Mingming shook her head and said, "Forget it, the children are afraid of the cold. I will stay at home with them and not go out." Elvis did not want to force Gu Mingming, but the three little ones jumped up high and clung onto Gu Mingming's legs, looking eager to try. Kamwo had already walked to the door and was circling on the spot, howling at Gu Mingming. It was obvious that he was begging her to go out to play. "Want to go out?" Gu Mingming asked softly. Oh. The three little ones' howls were filled with excitement and anticipation. Gu Mingming did not want to disappoint her son, so she smiled and nodded. Leah took the beast's skin and wrapped Gu Mingming up before standing beside Elvis and leaving the stone castle. Although they were going out to play, they would not go too far. After all, the snow came in a threatening manner and could turn into a storm at any time, engulfing everything in the beast world in silvery white frost. The snow at the entrance had already reached Gu Mingming's calves. The three little ones were now more muscular than a normal adult wolf, so the depth of the snow was not a threat to them. Seeing snow for the first time, the three little ones were obviously a little excited. Their two hind legs dug into the ground, sending snow flying high into the air and splashing all over each other. Gu Mingming looked at her sons playing happily and a faint smile appeared on her face. It would be great if Qi was here too. Since she was no longer in the mood to play, Gu Mingming nestled in Elvis's arms and watched her three sons play around. A snowball smashed onto Elvis's face and some snowflakes splashed onto Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming turned around and saw Leah looking at them with a sneaky smile, while the second snowball was already on its way. Elvis frowned and easily dodged the second snowball. He then smiled at Gu Mingming and asked, "Xiaoming, can I beat him up?" Chapter 869. The two adults and three kids played around Gu Mingming, forcefully smashing the melancholy in Gu Mingming's heart into pieces. As the snowflakes splashed on her body, the melancholy slowly dissipated before falling off. Looking at her gradually brightening smile, a pair of eyes hidden under the snow in the distance shone. It was hard to tell if it was peace of mind or loneliness. He just slowly turned around and retreated back the way he came. In a stone house in solder, Cole sat on the high seat like a king. His lazy and wanton gaze landed on the stone tablet embedded in the wall. Was Agu throwing a tantrum with him? He could almost imagine the sly smile on her face when she was carving these things. Yeah, she was a cute little fox. Using this stone tablet to tell him that she knew where his abilities came from? So, this stone tablet was carved by Agu thinking of him, right? What a great gift. The sound of a body swaying could be heard from the door. Cole's gaze was gentle as he looked for the source of the sound. Even before he saw anyone, he already knew who it was. "Is she all right?" Cole asked softly. Qi let out a few muffled sobs. "Envious? Then why don't you show yourself? If you are willing to go back, she will be happy." Cole's lips curled into a playful smile. He waved his hand and Qi jumped onto his knees. He lay down with his legs crossed, like an obedient large pet dog. Hearing Qi reply, Cole's smile deepened. He rubbed his head and said, "Silly son, don't pity me so easily. I am the great demon king of the beast world." "Oh, yeah, I know." Cole looked up and closed his eyes. "One day she will be mine. Then our family will not have to be separated anymore." The snow was getting heavier and the stone castle had already been completely sealed. The structure of the stone castle was more complete than the cave and was closer to the style of modern architecture. There were 2 levels with 7 rooms upstairs and 4 rooms downstairs. The hall was a more spacious area. Elvis had started a fire here to cook and keep warm. The food was piled up in the room on the first floor, and the 3 cubs did not have their own rooms, so they slept directly in the hall, lying next to the fire, which was also warm. That day, Gu Mingming unexpectedly did not let Leah prepare the food. Instead, she personally prepared a sumptuous meal. The 3 little ones circled around Gu Mingming, full of curiosity towards the food in their mother's hands. After working for a long time, although the ingredients were limited, they still managed to fill the table. Gu Mingming leaned into Elvis's arms and kissed the side of his face lightly. She said, "Hubby, happy first anniversary of our mating." Elvis felt as if a warm current had flowed into his heart, making it extremely soft. His eyes seemed to contain the depth of the entire ocean. He said gently, "So you've been busy today to celebrate your first year as a partner?" Gu Mingming nodded. "This is an important day for us, isn't it?" "Yes." Elvis kissed her temple. Actually, to him, from the moment he saw Gu Mingming in the lake, every day was an important day. But because of Gu Mingming's concern, the day of mating became an important day for Elvis. It was the most important day. Chapter 870. Lee's appearance was a stark contrast to Elvis's. A year ago at this time, he stood guard in the snow outside the cave alone, guarding the door for them. He listened to the ambiguous conversation through the snow and was tortured by it. Then he finally found a reason to come in and see her, but she used every single word to stab his heart. What maintaining the demeanor of an ex-boyfriend, what parting and being happy with each other, what being strangers from now on, there's only you and me in the world, not us. The three little ones did not know the complicated thoughts between the adults, they only knew that the food their mother made was especially delicious. Even if everyone in the world said that Daddy Lee's cooking was the best, but the taste of their mother was the one that satisfied the three little ones the most. After the meal, Elvis kissed Gu Mingming's face and said, "You've worked hard for a day, let Leah bring you upstairs to rest, I'll wash the dishes today." Before Gu Mingming could react, Leah had already carried Gu Mingming out from Elvis's arms horizontally. But Gu Mingming's gaze was filled with conflict. Today was the one-year anniversary of mating, shouldn't she and Elvis be the ones accompanying each other? Leah kissed Gu Mingming's lips with a deep gaze. After closing the door, he said, "Mingming, do you intend to let this day become my nightmare every year from now on?" Gu Mingming stared at Leah in a daze, unable to react. Leah placed Gu Mingming's little hand by his lips and kissed it, saying, "1 year ago at this time was the darkest and most tragic period of my life. At that time, I didn't want to live anymore because of you. But you cruelly want me to watch you and Elvis intimately every year on this day, reminding me repeatedly of how pathetic I looked when I was struggling outside of your happiness that day?" Gu Mingming looked down, her heart aching. She had neglected Lee's feelings, forgetting that on the day she and Elvis became partners, he was as miserable as they were blissful. Lowering her head, Gu Mingming said, "I'm sorry." Leah placed one hand on the side of her waist and pressed her down. His lips stopped beside her ear and he whispered, "You know very well that I prefer to hear you confess your love more than an apology." Gu Mingming nodded. The Gu Mingming now was no longer the naive Gu Mingming who had just transmigrated. She naturally knew what would happen after Lee's flirting. Blushing, Gu Mingming wrapped her arms around Lee's neck and whispered, "Leah, I love you." Leah bit Gu Mingming's little earlobe and breathed in a husky and charming voice, "These are the most touching words of love I've ever heard. Mingming, let today become our mating day. This way Elvis and I can celebrate with you every year. I will no longer be a lonely existence outside of your happiness. Let me be a part of your happiness, all right?" But we made it at the end of the rainy season, not now. Gu Mingming remembered that the date of their mating was not far from the anniversary of Snake's death. Leah shook his head and said, "Silly girl, you need to inherit something from me before you can truly be considered as my partner." At most, it was considered an engagement. Gu Mingming arched her waist slightly and her body subconsciously catered to Lee's teasing. A single sound escaped from her throat. "Mingming, let me belong to you completely, all right?" "Mm." A lingering kiss was followed by a floor of melancholy. Aside from the topic, "Hurry, there's no time, hurry up and board the train. Look at the car plate. 4927792773." After boarding the train, look for the administrator to check the tickets. Babes with more than 800 fans can enter the VIP cabin and enjoy the special treatment of overflowing meat. Note: this train is not heading to the kindergarten, please do not sneak onto the train if you want to go to the kindergarten. This train is not heading to the kindergarten, please do not sneak onto the train if you want to go to the kindergarten. Chapter 871. Every winter the flow of time would become a mystery. Gu Mingming did not know how long she had slept for and when it was day and night. But when she finally could not endure the empty fort strategy and woke up amidst the waves of protests, she was lying in between Elvis and Leah. She looked up and saw two pairs of eyes staring straight at her. Thinking of the craziness that day, Gu Mingming really wanted to find a piece of tofu and knock herself to death. She did not have the face to see Leah or Elvis. Gu Mingming sat up and pretended not to see them, walking straight to the door. Did you not serve her well? Elvis's voice sounded behind Gu Mingming, obviously questioning Leah. This sentence made Gu Mingming's hair stand on end. She was like a cat whose acupoints were hit, arching her back as if she had stepped on an electric switch. Leah was confused. It can't be. Her reaction that day was quite satisfactory. She fainted after that and I stopped because I could not bear to torture her anymore. Could it be, Do you usually continue after she fainted? Gu Mingming really did not want to listen to Elvis and Leah discuss their experiences of doing OXX with her. So she turned her head and glared at them, blushing. I'm hungry, I want to eat. Seeing her expression, the two of them then understood that Gu Mingming was shy and not dissatisfied with Lee's expression. Chuckling, Elvis reached out and opened his arms, saying, Xiaoming, come here. What? Gu Mingming blushed and did not move an inch. Leah needs time to cook. Lie with me for a while more. Leah had already stood up and walked to Gu Mingming's side. He carried her horizontally and placed her back into Elvis's arms. He covered her with a beast skin and kissed her forehead, saying, There will be food soon, don't be anxious. Lee's words could not be more serious, but it made Gu Mingming's face turn even redder. Damn fox. It was all his fault for saying eat, and eat non-stop that day. Every time she heard the word eat, those indescribable images would replay in her mind and she would soon be traumatized. Although Leah had the intention to continue teasing her, she had slept for a long time after all. Coupled with the intense exercise before sleeping, she was definitely hungry. He was not willing to let his darling Meng Meng starve to death. Thus, he gave up on enjoying the cute look of her getting angry and directly went downstairs to cook. Do you feel any difference in your body? Elvis asked as he adjusted the beast skin covering Gu Mingming's body. Gu Mingming's brain had turned into paste and she could not react at all. She did not know what Elvis was asking. Elvis stroked Gu Mingming's left ear gently and smiled. Lee's mark is clearer and more realistic now. This mating between the two of you is really full of twists and turns. However, since you've already mated with him, you should be able to inherit something from him. Gu Mingming buried her face into Elvis's chest. Mating anniversary and burning with another male, ha! She did not even dare to imagine how Elvis came that day. Elvis understood Gu Mingming's thoughts. He hooked her little chin lightly and made her look straight into his eyes, as if he wanted to pour the depth of the entire ocean into her. He said slowly with a low and mellow voice, As long as I don't lose you, I can endure anything. I'm your partner and so is he. If he suffers on that day every year, you will be sad. And I won't do anything that will make you sad, isn't that right? Digression. Why was Elvis's first reaction that Leah did not serve her well and not Gu Mingming's shyness? Chapter 872. Gu Mingming did not continue discussing this topic. From the day she accepted Leah, she knew that she was destined to be in a state of debt when it came to matters of the heart. Elvis and Leah treated her well, so she could only be grateful and try her best to love them even more. Leaning into Elvis's arms, she rubbed against his chest and listened to his heartbeat. Gu Mingming felt at ease as if she had found someone to rely on. Elvis stroked her hair lovingly, letting her nestle in his arms like a docile and lazy cat. He did not wish for his compromises to become a burden in Gu Mingming's heart. In the beast world, any half-orc female would have more than 10 males in her family. A complete female's family would have 30 to 50 members, and the first beauties of each tribe would have more than 100 partners. But Gu Mingming only had him and Leah. Even so, she always felt that she owed them and this made his heart ache. What he gave was not enough, but she already felt that she was too greedy and always took care of their emotions carefully. How good would it be if she could be more willful? That way she would be much happier. As the food in the house had all been processed, coupled with Lee's superb culinary skills, the meal was prepared very quickly. When Gu Mingming smelled the aroma of the meat and woke up, Leah was already standing downstairs, using stone bowls to serve rice and meat to everyone. Gu Mingming ate while looking at her 3 sons, her heart filled with warmth. If only Qixuan was here too. Just as she was thinking, a strange sound came from the corner. Elvis and Leah turned around sharply. Gu Mingming immediately shielded her 3 sons behind her, then stared at the sound with her guard up. 2 stone slabs were pushed open and a person walked out from the corner. Without seeing his face clearly, Gu Mingming could already tell who it was from his scent. Cole? Cole did not have time to care about Elvis and Lee's guard up. He walked straight to Gu Mengmeng and said with a serious expression, "Ah Gu, follow me." Something happened to little Xian. Gu Mengmeng felt as if all the blood in her body froze in an instant and her mind exploded. Without thinking about anything else, she walked towards Cole. Elvis held her waist and hugged her. "Xiaomeng, calm down." Gu Mengmeng turned back to look at Elvis in a daze. Her entire body was trembling and she could not utter a complete sentence. Calm down? How could he calm down? Qixin was her son. He was the one who had lost the most money and wanted to make it up to her. It was a piece of flesh that had fallen off her body. "Ah Gu, you know that I won't use little Xian to lie." Cole grabbed Gu Mingming's wrist and said, "Time is tight, I don't have time to explain." She then raised her head to look at Elvis and Leah. "Follow me if you're worried. Don't waste my time." Elvis pushed Cole's hand away and carried Gu Mingming in his arms. He turned back to look at Leah and said, "Stay at home and take care of the children. I will accompany Xiaomeng." Leah nodded. Although he was worried about Gu Mingming and Cole being alone together, if this was Cole's ploy to lure them away, Mingming would go crazy if anything happened to the three little ones. Chapter 873. Gu Mingming did not have a good sense of direction to begin with. After turning left and right for a few rounds underground, Gu Mingming was even more confused about north, south, east and west. Only when a ray of light appeared in front of her did she know that she had arrived. Coming out from a secret door that was similar to the entrance, Gu Mingming was stunned for a moment before realizing that she was in Sauter's meeting room. She had memorized the 36 stratagems on the wall and a white tiger skin was laid on a stone chair. Qixuan's small body was curled up on the animal skin, looking like he was in extreme pain. He gritted his teeth and trembled incessantly, whimpering sounds coming from his throat. Even though she did not understand animal language, she could tell from her maternal instincts that the child was crying out in pain. Gu Mingming's tears streamed down her face. She could not care less about anything else as she rushed over and hugged Qixuan in her arms to comfort him. "Don't be afraid, little Xian. Mummy is here." Elvis stepped forward and pulled at Qixuan's eyelids and ears. "It's alright, don't worry. It's just evolution." "Evolve?" Gu Mingming looked at Elvis with reddened eyes, as if she was a drowning person grabbing onto a life-saving straw. Elvis nodded. "It's just a normal evolution. He's almost 1 year old, it's time for him to evolve." But Hudar and the rest weren't like this when they evolved. Gu Mingming sobbed. This was the reality. No matter how strong a woman was, she would still be weak when it came to the problem of her children. That was the softness and sensitivity that they couldn't touch. Elvis remained silent. He could not tell Gu Mingming that it was not that Huda and his brothers were not in pain when they were evolving, but because they were too worried about her, they forcefully released all the pain in an instant. The process was too fast for her to notice. And when it came to evolution from beast form to human form, almost every inch of bone had to be broken, reassembled, broken again, and reassembled again. If that kind of pain erupted in a short period of time, ordinary beastmen wouldn't be able to bear it at all. At best, they would fail to evolve. At worst, they would be crippled or even killed on the spot. So even though he had never mentioned it, Elvis was actually quite proud of the fact that all three of them had successfully evolved into half-orcs. But he could not tell Gu Mingming about this. It was enough for her to worry about Qixuan. If the problem of the three little ones' evolution was mentioned, she would definitely blame herself even more. Instead of blaming herself, it was better to blame him. Elvis's expression was indifferent as he said, "Because the old injuries on his body have not fully healed, so it will be harder for him to evolve. Just get through it. It'll be fine." Gu Mingming glared coldly at Cole. If not for his scheme, Qixuan would not have been injured by Elvis. This debt would naturally be placed on his head. Cole did not think that Elvis was trying to push the blame onto him. After all, he was best at manipulating people's hearts. From what he saw, Elvis's words were just trying to shift the blame onto someone else. But it didn't matter. Just like what he said, if he couldn't become someone that Gu Mingming especially liked and especially loved, then she would hate and hate him even more. In any case, it wasn't just one or two things that she hated about him. One more or one less thing made no difference. Hence, Cole did not refute and only said, "Evolution is the critical period for Qixuan. He does not have enough battle experience and has too little experience. I'm afraid that he doesn't have enough power to support his evolution. Even though he has the support of the kiss of the ocean, his body is still too weak due to the poison. So, Agu, you have to help him." Out of topic. Today's update has ended. Regarding the issue of breaking updates in March, Su wants to apologize to everyone here. The editor requested that I have 250,000 chapters in stock. Yes, she changed her words. She clearly said 200,000 previously, but I only have 140,000 chapters in stock now, so I won't have a chance to be recommended in March. The editor's strict order is that I have to save 250,000 chapters in April, so I may not appear in the fan groups and message boards very often. But baby, even if I don't appear, you all must believe that I love all of you. Chapter 874. How can I help? Gu Mingming looked at Cole with reddened eyes. A drop of blood. Cole replied. You have the blood of the Beast King in you. Just a drop of blood is enough to help little Xian overcome this crisis. But Gu Mingming would not hesitate even if she had to bleed herself dry in exchange for Qixuan's safety, much less a drop of blood. The key was that her body was poisonous, especially her blood. Although she had been wearing the kiss of the ocean for many days and could now mate with her partner, that was only possible when Elvis and Leah were powerful enough. In other words, it was not that Gu Mingming was not poisonous, but that her poison had been diluted by the kiss of the ocean. In addition, Elvis and Leah had antibodies in their bodies so they could rely on their strength to not be poisoned to death by her. That was all. But blood was different. Just a drop of blood was enough for Gu Mingming to turn a 100-meter radius into barren land. Giving such a drop of blood to Qixuan? Was she helping him? Was she sure she did not want to kill him? Cole understood Gu Mingming's worries. He pointed at the kiss of the ocean on Qixuan's neck. If it's just a drop of blood, the kiss of the ocean can purify it. Gu Mingming did not trust Cole from the bottom of her heart. She turned to look at Elvis without saying a word. Elvis nodded as a reply. Gu Mingming finally made up her mind after seeing Elvis's reaction. She bit her finger and dripped a drop of blood between Qixuan's chattering teeth. Within a breath, Qixuan suddenly calmed down. But before Gu Mingming could heave a sigh of relief, Qixuan suddenly descended into a crazed state. His entire body kept convulsing. Gu Mingming was so worried that she did not know what to do. She could only call out his name over and over again. Tears streamed down her cheeks, causing Elvis's heart to ache. After a long while, Qixuan's state gradually calmed down. Then he slowly but clearly evolved before Gu Mingming's eyes. His tiny claws turned into long, fair fingers. His furry body gradually turned into a slender human form. His facial features were no longer that of a wolf's. With his head lowered, Gu Mingming could not see his face clearly. Elvis threw down a piece of beast skin to cover Qixuan's body. He did not like Gu Mingming to see other males naked, even if it was his son. This is considered to be over? Gu Mingming looked up at Elvis. Elvis scooped Gu Mingming into his arms and nodded, replying, yeah. The Beast King's bloodline is indeed different. It actually allowed little Xian to skip the half-beast stage and evolve into a rank 1 beastman. Agu, thank you. Cole knelt beside Qixuan and said as he caressed his little head. Gu Mingming's eyes were filled with resentment. Give me your dirty hands, don't touch my son. Cole was taken aback, but he still retracted his hand. He stood up and bowed to Gu Mingming. Since Xian is fine now and Agu doesn't really want to see me, then the two of you please leave. Gu Mingming snorted coldly. You seem to have forgotten that this is Sauter, my territory. I can go wherever I want. What right do you have to ask me to leave? Chapter 875. Since you know I won't feel comfortable staying in the same space with you, you should scram, shouldn't you? Gu Mingming didn't hold back against Cole at all. Cole looked deeply at Qixuan, who was sprawled on the ground. But if little Xian doesn't see me when he wakes up, he will run around the world again. The snow outside is so heavy. As a first-level orc, I'm afraid he won't be able to handle it. It's very dangerous. Gu Mingming clenched her fists. Qixuan's glance at her before he rushed into the snow was like a sharp knife stabbing into Gu Mingming's heart. She couldn't deny Cole's words. If Cole wasn't around, Qixuan would definitely look for him when he wakes up. Taking a deep breath, Gu Mingming ignored Cole. She just nestled in Elvis's arms and looked quietly at Qixuan, who was sprawled on the ground without moving. Her eyes were filled with worry. After some time, Qixuan seemed to have woken up. He stretched his neck and propped himself up on his elbows. Qixuan. Gu Mingming's heart was finally at ease. Qixuan was first taken aback when he heard Gu Mingming's voice. He then turned around and looked at Gu Mingming in surprise. He didn't expect her to be here at all. After a long pause, he opened his mouth and called out. Mother. Gu Mingming immediately jumped out of Elvis's arms and pounced over to hug Qixin. She rubbed his forehead intimately. Good baby, it's good that you are fine. You scared mother to death. Qixin hesitated for a moment, but still reached out to gently stroke Gu Mingming's back. Just like how she used to coax the four brothers to sleep when they were young. Although his voice was mild, there was a hint of coaxing in it. I'm sorry for making you worry. Gu Mingming shook her head and wiped her tears. It's all right. As long as you are fine, mother will be fine. Qixin didn't say anything else. He just tied a knot in the beast skin and wore it as a simple beast skin dress. He then took 2 steps back to distance himself from Gu Mingming. Mother, I am fine now. You guys, hurry back. Gu Mingming was stunned. She looked up at Qixin and asked in anticipation, aren't you coming back with me? Qixin could not bear to see Gu Mingming's tear-filled eyes. He tilted his head and said, I am already of age and must be independent. But you are my son, Gu Mingming said. Qixin did not compromise. His voice was calm and gentle as he said, I will live independently and will still be your son. Gu Mingming stood up and took 2 steps forward. But the closer she got, the further Qixin retreated. It was obvious he was rejecting her. Qixin, are you blaming your mother for not protecting you? Gu Mingming felt wronged, but there was nothing she could do. She didn't know if all parents in the world were at a loss in front of their children. She only knew, she didn't want to lose this son. Qixin pursed his lips and shook his head. Mother, I am a wolf. Gu Mingming was at a loss. She looked up at Qixin, not understanding what he meant. Qixin looked back into Gu Mingming's eyes and said slowly, wolves are not a tribe that needs protection. Gu Mingming compromised. She nodded and said, all right, since you don't blame your mother, you can go back with her. If you want to be independent, you have to at least survive this winter. Chapter 876. Qixin. Gu Mingming wanted to say something, but Qixin interrupted her. There was a faint smile on Qixuan's face. It was clearly so gentle, but it was filled with alienation and sadness. His eyes were slightly curved and the corners of his lips curled up, displaying just the right amount of elegance. Mother has Elvis, Leah and my other 3 brothers by her side. Even without me you will not be lonely. But apart from me he has nothing else. Gu Mingming clenched her teeth. She had never expected that the first man to tell her, he needs me more than you, would be her son. If the person who needs me more was a female, she would accept it. But why did it have to be Cole? Qixin, you clearly know. Qixin nodded. I know that he is a bad person in your eyes. You don't like him and have never thought of trying to accept or understand him. But that is between the 2 of you and has nothing to do with me. Gu Mingming didn't say anything. She just frowned at Qixin. The uneasiness in her heart grew stronger and stronger. He's an important person to me. I can't just leave him alone. So, mother, please go back. Gu Mingming bit her lower lip and slowly released her tightly clenched fists. She didn't want to push her son further away. The only thing she could do was to stand there without moving. Trying her best to smile, Gu Mingming looked at Qixin. My son is so handsome. Taking a deep breath, Gu Mingming felt her entire chest tremble. If not for Elvis supporting her from behind, she felt that she might not even be able to stand. But what could she do? A grown son cannot be controlled by his mother. Your father and I will go back first. I will always keep the door to the secret tunnel open. Whenever you miss me you can come back to see me, all right? Every word was a deep plea. Gu Mingming had never been so humble in front of anyone. Even when she and her mother were abandoned by their father, she had never begged like this. Even when she was chased out of the house by her mother, she had never begged like this. Her family was her most vulnerable spot. Facing Qixin, she could only be so humble. Qixin frowned. He took 2 steps forward and held onto Gu Mingming's shoulders. After hesitating for a moment, he still pulled her into his arms. Mummy, don't be like this. No matter where I am, I will always be your son. Yeah. Gu Mingming responded with a nasal sound, but her crying intensified. Elvis pulled Gu Mingming out of Qixuan's arms and placed her on his chest. He gently wiped her tear-stained face clean before looking at Qixin. Take care of yourself. Qixin nodded. With that, Elvis carried Gu Mingming back to where they came from. After Gu Mingming and Elvis left, Cole's face gradually darkened. He walked towards Qixin step by step, raised his hand and grabbed him by the neck. I think I've said it before. I'm the only one who's going to piss her off. His fingers were like metal pincers around Qishuan's neck. Raising him up, Qishuan's feet left the ground slightly. His face was flushed red from the lack of oxygen, but his body did not show any signs of resisting. He allowed death to approach him, but his eyes only stared unwaveringly at Cole, without a single ripple of emotion. Little Xian, don't forget yourself and challenge my bottom line just because I treat you well. Be obedient and don't make me angry, understand? Chapter 877. After returning to the stone castle, Gu Mingming's mood was very low. Elvis told Leah everything about Cole and Qixuan. Actually, children needed to be independent after they grew up. If Gu Mingming had not stopped them, the three young ones would have long gone out to fend for themselves. From the day they evolved, they no longer had any relationship with their original family. But because of Gu Mingming's persistence towards her family, Leah and Elvis made an exception and used the excuse that the three young ones had yet to fully evolve to keep them by their side. Seeing Gu Mingming's dejected look, Lee's heart ached. Sighing, Leah wagged his tail and sat beside Gu Mingming. He gently held her shoulders and placed her head on his chest. Children have grown up and have their own lives. You can't keep them by your side forever, can you? Leah kissed the top of Gu Mingming's head and said gently, moreover, don't you still have me and Elvis? The two of us will never leave you. Children had grown up and had to leave eventually. Gu Mingming understood this logic, but it did not mean that she did not feel sad. But fortunately, Qixuan would come over from the secret tunnel every few days to eat and chat with Gu Mingming. Gradually, Gu Mingming's mood improved. However, the fact that Qixuan, who had evolved the latest, was the first to become a first-level orc successfully stimulated the other three young ones, especially Kanwu. Then, in order to improve their own abilities, the three young ones started training in the wheel training mode at home. At first, the three of them fought each other, but later on they found Leah to train with. When Leah wanted to cook for Gu Mingming, the three young ones started to target Elvis. Elvis was very unhappy that the three young ones he trained lost to Qixuan, who was trained by Cole. So when he trained with the three young ones, he was very ruthless. But the three young ones became more courageous as they fought. They were not at all scared off by Elvis's ruthlessness, but instead entered a state of excitement. Time slowly passed as the father and son warmly sparred with each other. Until a crack appeared on the snow sealing the cave entrance and a gentle breeze blew in. Gu Mingming knew that a new year had begun. According to tradition, as the tribe leader and witch doctor, Elvis and Leah should host the first hunt after the new year. Gu Mingming was rather looking forward to the first hunt of this rainy season. After tidying himself and the three young ones, Elvis carried Gu Mingming in his arms. With a wave of his hand, the thin layer of snow blocking the entrance was smashed to the ground. Gu Mingming took in a deep breath of fresh air, then sighed in satisfaction. The weather was still a little chilly and Elvis was afraid that Gu Mingming would catch a cold, so he used a large piece of beast skin to wrap her tightly. She did not resist and allowed Elvis to wrap her up. Sauter held the ceremony at the deity altar, and it was here that Cole exchanged the secret signal with her, using the phrase, hoeing the fields in the middle of the day, to confirm her identity as the messenger of the beast deity. But when Gu Mingming and the rest arrived at the temple, they realized that a large number of Snow Fox tribesmen had already gathered there. It looked like the ceremony had been going on for half a day. And the one hosting the ceremony, was it Oakley? Gu Mingming frowned. She did not go up the stage and just watched quietly. Chapter 878. Gu Mingming was not a person who placed great importance on power, but she was not a fool either. Oakley's actions today were obviously overstepping his authority. Gu Mingming frowned and did not go up the stage. Meanwhile, everyone on and off the stage were already kneeling down, waiting for Gu Mingming's command. Leah whispered into Gu Mingming's ear, "The hunt is an important matter, it cannot be delayed. As for the rest, we can talk about it later." Gu Mingming hesitated for a moment before nodding her head. Elvis lifted her up onto the stage. Then Gu Mingming turned around to face the crowd and said, "Warriors, congratulations on passing the test of the harsh winter and becoming an even more outstanding existence. Now, it's time for you to display your talents and abilities to the beast deity. The first hunt after winter shall begin now." Hundreds responded to her call. Just as Gu Mingming finished her sentence, deafening roars resounded from below the stage, one after another. Elvis shook the shiny black fur on his body. His huge and burly body was like a king under the scorching sun, emitting an undeniable sense of oppression, causing everyone to subconsciously sharpen. Under his majesty, no one dared to take even half a step forward in front of him. With Elvis in the lead, a group of tribesmen dashed out. Leah never had to participate in this kind of hunt. Elvis alone was enough to control the entire scene. Gu Mingming's gaze landed on Oakley, who also did not participate in the hunt. She did not say a word and just watched quietly. Oakley did not panic, he just bowed to Gu Mingming, then said, "Does the great messenger have something to ask? Why don't we move to the meeting hall?" Gu Mingming did not reply, she just turned around and walked out. Winter had just ended, the snow had not even melted and the ground was very muddy. Leah carried Gu Mingming in his arms, saying dotingly, "The ground is cold, it's still more comfortable in my arms, right?" Gu Mingming smiled coquettishly and nodded, not saying a word. She knew that Leah was afraid that she would be in a bad mood because of Oakley, so he was purposely teasing her. The meeting hall was not far behind the deity altar. After about 5 minutes, Gu Mingming was already sitting on the stone chair covered with white tiger skin. Leah started a fire, boiling water at the side for Gu Mingming to drink. Oakley, on the other hand, was standing right below Gu Mingming, looking back at her with his head held high, not avoiding her gaze at all. This winter, Sauter has a total of 3 litters of cubs. Another snow fox female is pregnant and should be a female. Due to the method of food storage taught by the Great Messenger, no males died during the winter because they were treated as food. Only 7 died because their bodies were too weak to withstand the low temperature. The females of the Snow Fox clan were more delicate than the other clans. That was why I told the females to stay at home to avoid getting sick. This was also the reason why the Lord Messenger did not see any females today. However, all the males had come out and the scene was still very spectacular. I wonder if Sir Envoy is satisfied with my arrangements? Gu Mingming chuckled. Yeah, you have governed Sauter very well. Oakley lowered his head and maintained his faint smile. Thank you for your compliment, Great Messenger. But, why didn't I see Barit and Oriton just now? Chapter 879. Gu Mingming chuckled and said, "My guards will listen to your arrangements?" If Barit and Oakley had a personal relationship and returned to St. Nazir after listening to Oakley's instigation, Gu Mingming might believe it. But that foodie Oriton who had not eaten Li's cooking for an entire winter, would he return to St. Nazir obediently without eating a meal? Who would believe that? Oakley lowered his head and with a respectful and cautious look, he said, "If the Great Messenger thinks that my arrangements are inappropriate, then I will immediately send someone to chase after the 2 guards." Gu Mingming took a deep breath and said, "Oakley, I cherish the friendship we once had. If you have any difficulties, you can tell me directly and I will definitely help you if I can. But I don't like people playing tricks behind my back. If anyone tries to lead me by the nose, then be prepared to be bitten by me. I don't wish for the day to come when my poisonous fangs are pointed at my former friends." Oakley's expression did not even change. He was still respectful, calm and collected as he said, "I am the Great Messenger's most loyal subject. No matter what I do, I will always put the Great Messenger as my top priority. Didn't the Great Messenger also believe in this point and hand Sauter over to me to manage? Just like what the Great Messenger said, don't use those you doubt and don't suspect those you use. Since you use me, why are you doubting me?" Gu Mingming frowned and did not say a word. She just looked at him quietly. Oakley looked up and stared straight into Gu Mingming's eyes, asking, or could it be that the Great Messenger has suddenly changed her mind and wants to hold the authority tightly in her hands? Then the Great Messenger can just say it directly. Oakley will naturally listen to the Great Messenger's wishes and hand over the authority to you. After all, Oakley can also understand the logic of, kill the fox and dogs when they are dead. Why do you have to twist my words like this? You know that's not what I meant. Gu Mingming's heart turned cold. The shy and cunning Oakley from before had completely disappeared, right? Since when did the only thing left between them was mutual suspicion and jealousy? Although they were not that close in the past, they were at least friends, right? Now, kill the fox and dogs when they are dead? He actually used these 8 words to describe their relationship. Did I say something wrong? Oakley was still very calm, not a trace of emotion could be seen in his eyes. He said calmly, "When the messenger wanted to return to St. Nazir and needed someone to guard Sauter, she handed the turbulent Sauter over to Barit and me. Now that Sauter has regained its peace and prosperity, you came back to blame me for dispatching your guards. If you want to pin a crime on someone, you can always find a pretext. Actually, you don't have to go through all this trouble." You just have to say one word and I'm just a mere level 2 orc. Do I even have the leeway to resist? Oakley's words made Gu Mingming feel like her heart was stuffed with a ball of cotton. She wanted to refute but found that she had nothing to say. Back then, it was a fact that she had left a turbulent solder to him in Barit, or even, to say that it was turbulent was a euphemism. She had predicted that Cole would turn back and attack, so she left Oakley and Barit as bait. This was what she owed them and she had to pay them back. If you just want power, I won't interfere. But, you should know that there are some principles that must be adhered to, and some bottom lines that cannot be broken. Chapter 880. After Oakley finished speaking, he bowed and left. Gu Mingming leaned into Li's arms tiredly. She pinched the bridge of her nose, feeling a headache coming on. Li's hands pressed lightly on Gu Mingming's temples, massaging them with just the right amount of strength. He said softly, "Why do you have to worry about such dirty things? Can't you just leave it to Elvis and me to handle?" Gu Mingming sighed and said, "You two are too harsh. If possible, I still want to pull Oakley back. After all, we were once friends." Leah kissed the top of Gu Mingming's head and said, "Silly girl, you are too soft-hearted, that's why you are so easily manipulated by others." Gu Mingming looked up into Li's eyes and said, "Leah, I am scared." "What are you scared of?" Li's long and narrow eyes were like a gentle breeze, gently caressing Gu Mingming's heart. "I am scared that Cole will snatch away the people around me one by one, and in the end they will all become his." Gu Mingming buried her head into Li's chest and said in a low voice, "If the enemies standing in front of me in the future are all my family and friends, what should I do? Can I bear to do it? One Qixin has already made things difficult for me. Now it's Oakley, what's next? Will it be Barit or Oriton? Will it be Sandy or Ian, or will it be you or Elvis?" Leah chuckled and said, "Mingming, you must have confidence in yourself. The people around you are not so easily snatched away. At least, Elvis and I will definitely not leave you, isn't that right?" Gu Mingming nodded but did not say a word. Yes, Elvis and Leah would never leave her. But what if in the end, there was no one else besides the two of them by her side? What should she do? What if Huda and the rest also stood by Cole's side like Qixin in the future? What should she do? Before winter, Sandy's attitude towards Cole was already not quite right when she received her at the city gates. She wanted to ask then but could not find a suitable opportunity. Soon after, winter came and the two of them did not have the time to ask again. She felt an unbearable pain in her chest and her breathing became difficult. What if, after Qixin, Sandy was also standing on Cole's side? What was she going to do? The first hunt led by Elvis ended in the afternoon. It had to be said that Sauter's Snow Fox tribe was an old tribe with a strong foundation. Their battle power and teamwork abilities were much higher than St. Nazir's tribe, which only had a few years of history. As such, this first hunt was very satisfying for Elvis and it was a good exercise for him. The prey offered to the beast deity was also bigger and better than the ones hunted in St. Nazir in the past. But as the tribe leader, Oakley went to handle the complicated ceremonies, while Gu Mingming and Leah returned to the stone castle. They were prepared to cook the first prey of the year after Elvis and the three little ones returned, as a way to celebrate the start of the new year. Before she even saw them, she could already hear the three of them discussing excitedly. Such noise broke Gu Mingming's gloomy mood. She walked out of the door with a gentle smile on her lips. Looking at the father and son returning in the sunset glow, the lines on Gu Mingming's face were as gentle as the afterglow of the setting sun. It was warm but not blinding, making one yearn for it and feel attached to it. Chapter 881. Elvis pulled Gu Mingming into his arms and kissed the top of her head. It was as if he missed her too much after not seeing her for the entire afternoon. After a long while, Elvis finally let go of Gu Mingming and hugged her into the stone castle. Kanwu pestered Gu Mingming to tell him how brave he was today, while Jiaoyu complained about Kanwu's exaggerations from time to time, causing Kanwu to stomp his feet in anger. Huda put on the airs of a big brother and stepped out to balance the situation when Kanwu and Jiaoyu quarreled too much. As for Qixin, he always acted like a spectator and stayed out of the matter. He did not participate and just watched. After Leah finished preparing the food, the whole family finally had their first meal of the new year. Gu Mingming finally understood why the elderly cared so much about the word reunion. She had been in the beast world for a year. She did not know if her parents in that world had realized that this extra daughter of theirs had disappeared. If they had, would they be worried for her? Would they also search for her whereabouts? Or, rejoicing that such an extra existence had finally disappeared in the boundless world. They no longer had to worry about her suddenly appearing and becoming someone's burden. "Mummy." Camel put down his bowl and chopsticks and inched closer to Gu Mengmeng. He said coquettishly, "Can I bring some food to Master Burke?" Gu Mengmeng was taken aback. "Burke? Wasn't he?" She looked at Leah only to see him smiling helplessly. "That was just a show. Why would I be serious? If I really killed Burke, wouldn't Kanwa risk his life to fight me?" "So?" Gu Mengmeng asked. Leah shrugged. "Although I did not communicate with him beforehand, that fellow is still considered smart. When I appeared that day, he immediately understood what I meant and cooperated with me in a fight. However, he was clearly not my opponent, so I knocked him out. My attack was a bit heavy and his injuries were not light, but he wouldn't die. When Oriton and the rest went over to deal with the aftermath, they arranged for him to be sent back to Sauter to recuperate." "Then why didn't you tell me then?" Gu Mengmeng had always thought that Burke had really been beaten to death by Leah. Leah put on an innocent look. "Why would an unimportant person mention it?" Gu Mengmeng chuckled. Leah was a jealous person. He did not wish to mention any male's name in front of her. She was already used to it. Without asking further, Gu Mengmeng took a huge stone bowl and filled it with meat for Kanwu. "Go." Kanwu was overjoyed. He was grinning from ear to ear. He called Huda and Jiaoyu and ran out. Kanwu was extremely happy. He smiled so widely that one's eyes could not see of his eyes. Of Gu Jinwu's eyes. Qishuan's eyes were filled with envy, but he knew that he was not in a position to ask Gu Mengmeng to share some food with someone important. He was afraid that they would rather throw away the food than let that person have a bite. Gu as of Lia's, of him, of Gu Gu of Mengmeng of. Gu Mengmeng was sensitive and sensitive. She naturally noticed that Qishuan's expression was not quite right the moment Kanwu said he wanted to send meat to Burke. To tell the truth, if it was for Cole, she would rather throw the food away than let him have a bite. But for her son. Chapter 882. Can I also do that? Qixin was clearly surprised, so surprised that he appeared rather agitated. Gu Mengmeng chuckled and rubbed Qishuan's head. "Of course you can. You are my son, what is there not to do in this family?" Actually, Qixin was already a fully grown adult now. Gu Mengmeng's intimate actions made him feel rather uncomfortable. But at the same time he also felt a little greedy and satisfied. Amidst the conflict, he survived in the cracks, enjoying the suffocating and conflicted pleasure. "Thank you, Mummy," Qixin said in a small voice. Then he lifted his bowl and bowed before leaving. After the four children left, Gu Mengmeng sighed. The smile on her face gradually faded, leaving behind a trace of loneliness. Elvis used his index finger to gently rub the area between Gu Mengmeng's brows. His pair of eyes that were supposed to be sharp were now filled with a gentle glow, as if he could not wait to present the softest thing in the world to this little girl in front of him. He said in the most soothing voice, "Children have grown up and will eventually have to go out and explore the world. So, try to divert your attention away from them and focus it on Leah and me. How about that?" Gu Mengmeng felt as if her heart had been scratched by a kitten. She looked at Elvis, who was seriously fighting over her with his four sons, and could not help but smile. Her smile was filled with a tinge of helplessness and sweetness. From the moment their sons were born, this fellow had treated the four of them as his #1 love rivals. Now that their sons were all grown up, why did he feel as if he had finally overcome all his hardships? "Xiaomeng." Elvis's voice was a little hoarse, like hot sand grinding against iron. It had a bewitching quality to it. "When we went hunting today, I observed that Huda and the rest should be evolving soon." Gu Mengmeng's body stiffened. "Will it hurt like Qixin?" Elvis shook his head. "No, their bones have already evolved. Their bones have evolved so they won't be in so much pain anymore." Gu Mengmeng finally relaxed and heaved a sigh of relief. Elvis carelessly twirled Gu Mengmeng's hair. "I wanted to say that once they complete their evolution, they will have to move out and live independently." Gu Mengmeng bit her lower lip. Her son was only a little over a year old. In the modern world he was still at the age where he would be hugged in his arms and nibbled on a pacifier. But she had to face the situation of her son becoming independent and moving out of the house. Everything in the beast world was really fast-paced. She was only pregnant for a few weeks and the child could only be raised for a year. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't disappointed. But Gu Mengmeng knew that as a qualified mother, she had to learn to let go at the appropriate time and accept the fact that her child was an individual. She could not force her own desires onto her child. So Gu Mingming nodded and said, I know, I will be mentally prepared. Elvis kissed Gu Mingming's little face and said, don't worry, even if they become independent, you won't lose them. Just like Qixin, he will come back to accompany you every few days. Gu Mingming smiled helplessly. I'm just afraid that when the child grows up, he will be like the husky in the neighborhood. If I let go, he will disappear. Elvis had not heard the term husky for a long time. Thinking about how she used to tease him with this term, those sweet memories immediately occupied the corner of his lips. The gentleness in his gaze spread into ripples. Elvis said happily, if they dare not go home to see you, I'll break their legs. Aside from the topic, today's update has ended. Susu was trying hard to save her chapters. Babies, why aren't you saying that you love me? Chapter 883. That night, Sauter hosted a bonfire party. After all, it was the start of the new year and Gu Mingming, the messenger of the beast deity, had to attend. The biggest bonfire and the supreme stone chair belonged to Gu Mingming alone. Bonfire parties were usually organized by families, meaning that there would be as many bonfires as there were females. Those without a family could go to the side of the females they were pursuing to make their presence known. If they did well, they would be part of a family from that night onwards. However, under such circumstances, Oakley could only maintain his role as the host, arranging and handling the affairs. A few females tried to express their goodwill to him but were all brushed off by him. Kamwu obtained Gu Mingming's approval and brought Burke to their bonfire to play together. The three young ones were still immersed in the day's hunt and their excitement had not subsided. They pestered Burke to the point that he wanted to talk to Gu Mingming a few times but could not find the time. Gu Mingming was happy and relaxed. She knew that the three young ones were doing it on purpose. Because once Burke really started a conversation with her, he would never have the chance to sit in front of her, no matter if she ignored him or not. The two males in her family would never allow a male with ulterior motives to make his presence known in front of her. Elvis continued to act as a leather sofa with constant temperature, protecting Gu Mingming tightly. Leah continued to prepare the food while Gu Mingming listened to her three sons' heroic achievements with great interest. Her gaze occasionally drifted to the surroundings but she could not find Qixin. He had accompanied her for a meal in the afternoon so he must have stayed to accompany Cole at night. He was clearly her own son but he treated Cole as family. Could it be that she had jinxed Qixin? Could it be that Stockholm Syndrome had really befallen Qixin? At this moment, Gu Mingming really wished that she was Wang Xiaoxin. If she had studied psychology would she not be so helpless? Gu Mingming. A soft voice rang from behind Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming turned around in response and met Sandy's sparkling eyes. Yeah, every time she saw Sandy after winter, Gu Mingming would feel as if she had gone to Korea for liposuction and plastic surgery. She had seen her once last year but she could not help but be shocked when she saw her again this year. Seriously? Whiteness covers all ugliness, fatness destroys everything. All fat people were potential stalks. When they slimmed down they would look so beautiful that they would be afraid of themselves. Standing up from Elvis's arms, Gu Mingming took the initiative to pull Sandy's little hand over to sit beside the bonfire. Bode and Colin looked serious and cautious as they guarded Sandy's side as if they were facing a formidable enemy. They looked a little scary. Gu Mingming turned to look at them. What? Are you afraid that I'll eat Sandy? Bode nodded subconsciously. When he came back to his senses he immediately shook his head. He wanted to explain but when he saw Sandy rolling her eyes, he immediately shut up and lowered his head, not daring to say a word. Gu Mingming could not be bothered with them. She just took Lee's roasted meat and passed it to Sandy. Here, you can eat first. Sandy smiled sweetly. She took the barbecued meat but didn't eat it immediately. Her face was bright red under the light of the fire. She looked especially shy. Gu Mingming, I have something to tell you. What is it? Chapter 884. Gu Mingming was stunned for 3 seconds before breaking into a grin. Really? You're pregnant? Sandy blushed and nodded. Yeah, I'm pregnant. It's yours? Ah? Gu Mingming almost fell over. She shook her head. No, this is not scientific. Sandy glared at Gu Mingming. It's your godson. Right. Gu Mingming remembered that at the start of last year when he brought Huda and his brothers out, he told Sandy that if Sandy gave birth to a daughter, she would choose one of her sons as her partner. If she gave birth to a son, he would acknowledge Gu Mingming as his godmother and become sworn brothers with Huda and his brothers. Now that Sandy was pregnant, it would naturally be her godson. But, how do you know it must be a son? What if it's my daughter-in-law? Sandy's pregnancy was a piece of good news to Gu Mingming. In a time filled with troubles, it was like a stream of fresh air. On one hand, Gu Mingming had a good relationship with Sandy. On the other hand, she really needed a piece of good news to calm her emotions. Hence, she paid extra attention to Sandy's tummy. Sandy chuckled. You're still the same. You know some magical things like the back of your hand, but you're still so clueless when it comes to common sense. Gu Mingming was not annoyed by Sandy's teasing. She nodded. You're a pregnant woman. You're the boss. Whatever you say is right. Sandy's eyes curved into crescents as she smiled. She did not know why. She had been in a bad mood ever since she got pregnant. But whenever she was with Gu Mingming, she would feel especially good. If it's a female, the pregnancy period is about 10 months. But look at me, I can already see a slight bump in my tummy after just 20 days. If Sandy had not mentioned it, Gu Mingming would have thought that she was just a little bloated from eating too much. But now that she explained it, yeah, that tummy was indeed bulging. Gu Mingming reached out her hand to touch Sandy's tummy. So, this baby is? Bodes. Sandy's gaze was very gentle. After getting pregnant, she was filled with motherly radiance. If it's a bear, even a male would need about 91 to 95 days. It's impossible for it to bulge so quickly. So this baby should be a junior leopard. Gu Mingming gave Bode an approving look and said, Not bad, Bode, congratulations. Bode had a silly smile on his face as he scratched the back of his head. His face was flushed, and his gaze was fixed on Sandy from beginning to end with a doting and loving gaze. Gu Mingming clasped her hands together and prayed. She closed her eyes and said, In the name of the messenger, I pray to the mighty beast deity. Please bless this little life with peace and blessings. Let him grow up strong, happy and healthy. Sandy's eyes reddened as she looked at Gu Mingming and said with a nasal voice, Thank you, Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming opened her eyes and smiled. What's there to thank me for? He's my godson after all. Sandy nodded her head heavily and said, Gu Mingming, I still have one more thing to ask of you. There's no need for requests between us. Tell me if there's anything. Gu Mingming smiled. Sandy sniffed and said, I want you to help me choose a name for my son. Is that okay? Chapter 885. Sandy shook her head, her gaze filled with eagerness and desire. You are the messenger of the beast deity, the names you give them are different. Gu Mingming chuckled, instantly understanding what Sandy meant. All parents in the world were like this, always wanting to give the best to their children. Gu Mingming nodded. All right, I will help you give them names after you give birth. Sandy smiled and said, I know you treat me the best. Whenever two females met, they would always have endless topics to talk about. They rambled on for a long time, leaving no room for the four males to interrupt. Gu Mingming had been in a bad mood for a while because of Qixuan and Oakley. Elvis and Leah were naturally happy to see someone who could talk to her and make her laugh. Hence, they did not forcefully intervene out of jealousy, allowing the two of them to laugh as they ate. They chatted softly and laughed loudly. As for Bode and Colin, Sandy had already put on an act of exploding on the spot for the past few days. They could not do anything to her. She finally found someone who could make her laugh. As long as the two Buddhas in Gu Mingming's family did not fly into a rage, they could not wait for Sandy and Gu Mingming to spend more time together, so that Sandy's mood would improve. Where is your Cole? Why don't I see him? Everyone was taken aback by Sandy's words. Gu Mingming narrowed her eyes in confusion. She tried her best not to show any abnormalities. She asked as she ate, My Cole? Yeah. Sandy nodded. You haven't forgiven him? Although he has not found the things you want, let him go home on Qixuan's account. Otherwise it will not be good for the two of them to keep floating around outside. Gu Mingming raised her eyebrows. He told you that? Sandy nodded. Yes, he and Leah mated with you at the same time. Although he is not as likable as Leah, he is still a 5th-level orc. You two also have Qixuan as your son. If you have not found the things, you can slowly search for them. You don't have to be so angry that you won't let them go home. Cole and Leah mated with me? Gu Mingming was getting more and more confused. She had mated with Leah in the Snake King Valley, but after returning to St. Nazaire, Gu Mingming did not block the news, So many people in the tribe knew what had happened to her in the Snake King Valley. Naturally, Sandy was one of those people. And after that, when they were digging the well, Gu Mingming had also specially told them what had happened in the Snake King Valley at the request of all her female friends. Sandy was the friend who had been by her side the longest. She didn't believe that Sandy didn't know what was going on between her and Cole. But Sandy obviously did not look like she was lying. Her attitude was so similar to when she was pleading for Elvis and Leah in the cave previously. Therefore, Sandy firmly believed that Cole was one of her partners and that Qixin was their son. *CK. Qixin was a wolf and Cole was a fox. They were of different breeds. How could they be biological father and son? You don't even need to do a DNA test, you can tell with your naked eyes, okay? Sandy, we should go back. If you continue to pester Gu Mingming, Leah will throw a tantrum again. As Bode spoke, he carried Sandy up forcefully. He gave Colin a look before carrying the stubborn Sandy and leaving first. Chapter 886. Gu Mingming didn't reply and just looked at Colin quietly. She knew that Colin would definitely tell her everything without holding anything back, because he knew that she valued Sandy as much as he did and would not leave her alone. Not long after you guys set off to search for the Kiss of the Ocean, Cole came to St. Nazaire. He asked Qixin to trick Hutta and his brothers out, then used them to threaten Sandy to leave with him. Colin clenched his fists tightly, feeling that everything was his fault. If he had protected the three little ones well enough and did not give Cole a chance to take advantage of them, perhaps none of this would have happened. But Gu Mingming knew that with Cole's methods, it would not be difficult for him to crush Colin. Even if he managed to stop him this time, there would be a next time. Moreover, if there was a next time, his methods would not be as gentle as tricking. After all, Cole did not only have Qixin by his side, but also those third-level and fourth-level stray beasts that had yet to show themselves. Moreover, Qixin was Hutta's biological brother. Who could stop brothers from meeting? Gu Mingming patted Colin's shoulder to comfort him. She did not say a word and just listened to Colin sigh quietly. When we chased after them, we saw Cole and Sandy walking back, chatting and laughing. Hutta and the rest were playing by the side and the atmosphere was quite good. At that time, Bode and I felt very strange. Sandy had always been on the same side as you and would never like anyone you hated. When you left, you looked like you were going to fight to the death with someone, but when you came back, you looked like you regretted not meeting earlier. When Sandy saw Bode and I, she immediately asked us to follow her to Sauter. She wanted to wait for you here. We pulled Sandy away from Cole, but she said that he was Gu Mingming's partner after all and that she had to make things up between the two of you. I was stupid and could not wrap my head around it, so I directly said that Cole was not your partner. Then Sandy flew into a rage and said that even if I still cared about you in my heart, I had already mated with her. She told me not to do anything that would ruin your relationship with Cole. I was so wronged. Gu Mingming frowned deeply. She knew everything about Colin liking her. Back then, Allie had used this matter to provoke Sandy, but Sandy had retorted. If Sandy would believe that there was something going on between her and Colin. Gu Mingming did not believe him. Then Cole pulled me and smiled mischievously. He said that if I don't want to be abandoned by Sandy and become a stray beast, I should shut up and not spout nonsense in front of Sandy. But I'm not talking nonsense. He's not your partner in the first place. I didn't believe it, so I went to talk to Sandy twice, but for the entire winter, Sandy didn't even let me touch her. She didn't even talk to me. Her temper was especially bad after she got pregnant. If anyone dared to say that Cole and you are not a couple, she would immediately put up a desperate stance. Gu Mingming knew how much Sandy liked Colin. Wasn't the bear mark on his chest the best proof? They were so deeply in love that they would end up in a cold war and even dissolve their partnership just because of a sentence that she had nothing to do with Cole. Cole was really cunning. Gu Mingming clenched her fists so tightly that her fingertips turned white. What she was worried about had really happened, hadn't it? First it was Qixin, then Oakley, and now Sandy. Chapter 887. All the people important to her had formed an important connection with Cole. If she killed Cole rashly, the first to suffer would be the people she cared about. Unless she was so heartless that she didn't care about anyone, otherwise, she could not move Cole. If Qixin alone was enough to make her hesitate, then now, she was already at a standstill. Gu Mingming, think of a way. Sandy really can't go on like this. Her consciousness was getting more and more chaotic by the day. The last time she suddenly recalled that Cole was a fox and Qishan was a wolf. How could they be biological father and son? Then she felt a splitting headache. She hugged her head and rolled on the ground. After that, whenever she thought of any illogical details and tried to discover that you and Cole had nothing to do with each other, she would have a headache. It's still alright during the winter. At most, we won't mention you and Cole in front of her. But the closer it is to the end of winter, the more she thinks of you and Cole. When we found out that she was pregnant, we didn't dare to agitate her. Whenever she thought of something illogical, we would have to think of ways to justify ourselves and say that you and Cole were a couple. I'm sorry I started rumors about you behind your back. After saying that, Colin lowered his head and frowned deeply. Colin had always been a simple and honest rough man. He tried not to open his mouth when he could. For him to say so much to Gu Mingming today, it was obvious that he was really worried sick about Sandy. Gu Mingming also sighed and said with some guilt, I should be the one apologizing. I'm afraid that the reason why Cole would plot against Sandy is also because of me. I will think of a way to settle this matter, don't worry. Colin raised his head and wanted to say something, but in the end he gave up and only said, then, thank you. Then he left. Originally, hearing that Sandy was pregnant was a happy news. Cole was really trying his best to make things difficult for her. Elvis hugged her waist and kissed her brow lightly. Don't worry, it's fine. Gu Mingming looked up at Elvis and asked, if I was pregnant today and Cole had used some unknown method to control me, how would I react? Can you still calmly say don't worry, it's fine? Elvis was stunned. Just thinking about that possibility made his heart clench. He shook his head and said, I can't do it. Gu Mingming lowered her head and leaned back into Elvis's arms, saying, yeah, I can't do it either. Sandy was the first friend I'd made after coming here. She was such a coward. She didn't even resist when she was bullied by Nina, but because Nina scolded me, she got into a fight with Nina. No matter what, she always put my feelings first and treated me better than her own partner. As long as I make a request, she seems to have never refused. She is my precious sister. I can't ignore her. I can't do it. Elvis tightened his grip on her waist and rubbed his chin against the side of her face. His voice was firm and deep, calm as he said, I'm not asking you to ignore her, I'm just asking you not to worry. Worrying won't solve anything, right? Gu Mingming tilted her head and nodded. She did not say a word and just let Elvis hug her. It was the same at any time. His embrace always made her feel at ease. Chapter 888. The three young ones were overly excited today and fell asleep not long after they returned to the stone castle. Elvis and Leah accompanied Gu Mingming back to the room on the second floor and closed the door before speaking with ease. Leah, Sandy's condition is very similar to the fox seductive fragrance. Although Leah had been roasting meat during the night campfire party, his attention was always on Gu Mingming, so he naturally heard the conversation between Colin and her. Fox seductive fragrance? Gu Mingming was taken aback. She suddenly recalled how Cole used a medicinal worm to frame Leah and was tricked by him. That day, Cole appeared and seemed to have said something about replacing Lee's position. Leah later told Gu Mingming that a male's fox seductive fragrance could only increase interest, but a female's could confuse one's mind. Leah nodded and said, I smelled it when Sandy sat beside you just now. Although it was very faint, it was definitely the fox seductive fragrance. Gu Mingming frowned and asked, is there a cure? Leah nodded, but his expression was slightly hesitant as he said, there are two ways. The first is to find the person who bewitched Sandy and let the original owner undo it. The second is to find someone who is better at using the fox seductive fragrance. With a stronger fox seductive fragrance and a more skilled technique, the original illusions will be suppressed. Bewitching? Gu Mingming was confused. Leah nodded and said, a female's fox seductive fragrance will cause people to hallucinate differently. But if used alone, it is just a purer sex secretion than a male's. But if paired with someone who knows how to bewitch, it can confuse one's mind. Gu Mingming frowned and looked at Leah, asking, do you know bewitching? Leah nodded and said, every tribe leader and witch doctor has to learn bewitching. Gu Mingming said, then use it on me once and let me experience it. Leah pursed his lips and said, I won't use it on you, Humph. Gu Mingming was taken aback and thought to herself, what the hell was with this sudden tsundere? What are you Humph for? Looking at Gu Mingming's confused face, Elvis chuckled and played with her fingers. He's afraid that once he uses the bewitching spell on you, he will not be able to control his greed and want more and more. First they'll fight for favor, then, they might want to replace me and finally they'll want to kill me. I won't do anything to upset Meng Meng. Leah turned his head away, his face blushing. Gu Mengmeng chuckled. Then isn't it settled? I'll only do it once. I just want to know what a bewitching spell is. Leah turned his head and refused to look at Gu Mengmeng, rejecting her coldly. No. Gu Mengmeng face-bombed. Then there's no other way. I can only look for coal. No. Leah exploded and glared daggers at Gu Mengmeng. Let him cast a bewitching spell on you and you will think that he is your partner just like Sandy. Gu Mengmeng was suddenly speechless. Why did her fox's IQ seem to drop when it came to matters related to her? I mean, look for coal and ask him to remove the bewitching spell on Sandy. I didn't say to ask him to cast a bewitching spell on me. Leah was taken aback. Clearing his throat, he turned his face to the side. That won't do either. I don't like you looking for coal. He smells like a fox and it's so smelly. Aside from the topic, recommending a good friend 9 Palace Lotus, school hunk's favorite, Kiss Peace Little Sweetheart, a wave of strong school sweetheart novels. It's free if it's not sweet. This was the story of an intelligent and calm girl who silently defeated a group of rivals in love who surrounded her deskmate. In the end, she won the heart of a male god, but she just patted her butt and left in a carefree manner. In the end, she was carried to the bed and ruined. Below was a conversation between the handsome school hunk and his deskmate who was pretending to be dumb. Little cutie, I'll be waiting for you at the field after class. Why are you going to the field? There's grass in the field, just you. F*CKU? 1v1 on both sides. Losing everything. Exciting school life. The plot basically relied on each other and the word count basically depended on coincidence. Chapter 889. Gu Mengmeng really wanted to remind Leah that both of them were from the same tribe and were born from the same mother, so the taste was really not that different. But Gu Mengmeng knew that Leah would definitely explode if she said that. Moreover, she was not willing to compare Leah with Cole, so she just criticized silently and did not say it out loud. Elvis patted Lee's shoulder and said, "It's all right, you just need to show Xiaoming the process of casting the spell. Without the female's fox seductive fragrance, it won't have any effect." But Leah hesitated. Elvis chuckled and said, "Why? After rebuking the head of the household, you want to rebuke the first partner now? Are you trying to ascend to heaven?" Leah suddenly laughed and said helplessly, "You really pamper Gu Mengmeng, you dare to joke around with your position as the first partner. Aren't you afraid that I will cast a bewitching spell and make Gu Mengmeng give up the position of the first partner to me?" Elvis was unperturbed and raised his brows calmly and said, "You can try." Leah twitched his lips in boredom and said, "Tisk, forget it. The first partner has to maintain his bearing, this won't do, that won't do, I will just be a pampered partner." Elvis nodded and said, "Yeah, if you want to continue being pampered, don't go against the head of the household." Leah rolled his eyes at Elvis and said, I know. Tiske, you are so daring." Elvis chuckled. Daring? Also not. He never dared to risk Gu Mengmeng. But, if it was Leah, he was not worried. Leah was the same as him, he would not do anything to make Gu Mengmeng sad, right? Leah swayed his tail and sat in front of Gu Mengmeng. He closed his long and narrow eyes slowly before opening them again, meeting Gu Mengmeng's gaze with unmistakable accuracy. A red light flashed across his eyes and Gu Mengmeng felt her line of sight being held tightly by Leah and she could not move it away at all. That pair of eyes was like a huge whirlpool and the more she struggled, the deeper she sank until she could not see the top. Gu Mengmeng, you are very Russian now, you really want to eat stewed meat? You are very Russian now, you really want to eat stewed meat? Her vision was blurry and Gu Mengmeng could not see anything. She could only hear the familiar voice repeating in her ears. Gu Mengmeng's stomach twitched and when she regained her senses, she felt a little hungry. "Leah, I'm hungry, I want to eat stewed meat." Gu Mengmeng blurted out subconsciously and saw Leah and Elvis's serious expression. Stunned for a moment, Gu Mengmeng suddenly smiled and said, "I understand." Elvis hugged Gu Mengmeng and asked softly. Gu Mengmeng said, "Without the help of the fox seductive fragrance, although I will be bewitched, I will wake up in an instant, bewitching spell?" Hehe. Gu Mengmeng looked up at Leah, her gaze carrying the hazy coolness of the moonlight. She looked like a little fox hiding under the night sky, so cunning that it was exceptionally captivating. "If I'm not wrong, this bewitching spell was imparted to you by the previous messenger of the beast deity, right? If it's her, She should be able to bewitch people even without the fox seductive fragrance. Chapter 890. Gu Mingming laughed and said, "Of course not. How is this bewitching spell? It's just hypnosis." "Hypnosis?" Leah asked. Gu Mingming nodded and said, "Yeah, it's a type of psychological suggestion. It's Wang Xiaoxin's specialty." Gu Mingming leaned back and rested her head on Elvis's chest, her fingers tapping on Elvis's arm in a rhythmic pattern. First, using the fox seductive fragrance to disturb a person's mind, then using psychological suggestions when the person's mind is weak to achieve the effect of hypnosis. But normally hypnosis would have a necessary key. Once this key is triggered, the hypnosis can be removed. Sometimes it's a certain keyword, sometimes it's a certain thing or a certain time. Simply put, everything in the world can be that key. So, unless the person using the key to remove the hypnosis, the probability of trying to guess is too low, almost negligible. What are the chances of getting this key from Cole? Probably lower than Gu Mingming trying to guess herself. His original intention was to hold the people around Gu Mingming in his hands as a life-saving bargaining chip, so he naturally would not return them to her easily. Then there was only the second option left. A stronger person using the spell? Then did she have to dig Wang Xiaoxin out from the ground? The more Gu Mingming thought about it, the more frustrated she got. For the umpteenth time, why did she choose to major in human resource management in university? She should have majored in psychology. Rubbing her hair, Gu Mingming slapped her thigh and said, "I want to sleep." Elvis and Leah exchanged glances and said, "Go find the beast deity?" Gu Mingming nodded and said, "Yeah." Elvis sighed and kissed Gu Mingming's little mouth, saying, "Don't sleep for too long." Gu Mingming nodded as a form of agreement. Elvis gently placed Gu Mingming on the bed that was covered with a thick layer of beast skin, then turned to sleep on the outside to block the side of the bed for her. He used the beast's skin to gently cover her tiny body and said while tucking in the corner of the blanket, "Sleep, I will guard you." Gu Mingming slowly closed her eyes and allowed the drowsiness to engulf her. Her consciousness rose and returned to the clouds of white fog. The beast deity was sitting leisurely on a two-seater wooden chair on a small patch of grass about 2 square meters, smiling at Gu Mingming. He stretched out his hand and said, "Daughter, you're back." Gu Mingming walked over quickly, tilting her head to look at the beast deity with an indignant expression. "I was tortured so badly in the beast world, but you are living so happily here." The beast deity smacked his lips. "Didn't you come back for pocket money? This is not obedient. Is it all right?" Gu Mingming choked. She clenched her fists and said, "You win." After she finished speaking, she took a deep breath and said with a kind smile, "Papa, I'm back to watch TV with you." The beast deity raised his eyebrows and laughed. "You seem like a scheming female antagonist who fights for inheritance in television dramas." A thick mark appeared on Gu Mingming's forehead and she faked a smile. "I am your only child, no one will fight with me for your inheritance." The beast deity nodded in agreement and said, "Yeah, what you said makes sense." Gu Mingming raised her palm and said, "I intend to be a hard-working daughter this time. I don't want anything else this time, just give me a book." Chapter 891. The smile on Gu Mingming's face almost broke. She shook her head and sat beside the beast deity. Wrapping her arms around the beast deity's arm, she said, "Papa, I want a copy of Hypnosis, from beginner to master." The beast deity nodded. With a fatherly doting tone, he said, "Sure, watch television with me first. I will give it to you after." "Sure." Gu Mingming agreed happily. Then she crossed her arms and looked at the beast deity. With a wave of his hand, an empty space appeared in front of them. Familiar scenes flashed before her eyes. It was the same place she had seen the previous time. The luxurious shopping mall was filled with dazzling items. All the products exuded a luxurious and dispirited aura. Gu Mingming did not even need to look at the labels to be blinded by the dazzling light. Snake pressed Gu Mingming onto the sofa. Then he gestured casually. A young lady at the counter pushed 2 rows of clothes in front of him. Snake casually took a set of clothes and entered the changing room to change. After changing, he walked to Gu Mingming and asked, "Does it look good?" Gu Mingming was dumbfounded. Why was this hero not acting according to the rules? Didn't he say he was going to buy clothes for her? Why did he activate the Miracle Nuanuan's dressing mode? But it was really pleasing to the eyes. The 4-piece khaki suit on Snake looked like it was tailor-made for a model. He looked like a business elite, instantly killing off all the fake CEOs and television dramas. Maybe it was because the nobility he exuded was different from the aura he exuded just by relying on clothes and props. Snake had only asked 3 words. He did not even try to act cool. He just stood there quietly. It was as if he was the cover of a magazine. Gu Mingming had the urge to take a photo and lick the screen. Snake raised his left hand and looked at the watch on his wrist. He chuckled and said, "Yeah, you stared at me for 2 minutes. Looks like this set of clothes is not bad." Gu Mingming was brought back to reality by Elvis's words. She suddenly lowered her head and said, Who looked at you?" Elvis was in a good mood. He took 2 steps forward and hooked Gu Mingming's chin. His gaze was teasing. "Wipe your saliva before denying it. Maybe it will be more convincing." Gu Mingming instinctively touched her mouth and realized that she had been tricked when she realized that the smile in Snake's eyes had deepened. She snorted angrily and turned her head away from Snake. Snake did not mind, he just changed into different styles of clothes for Gu Mingming to see, before deciding which one she wanted based on how stunned she was. But she had to admit that Snake was a natural clothes rack. None of the clothes he tried on were bad-looking, as if they were specially designed for him. And no matter what style it was, when it came to him, he was handsome. His handsomeness could explode the sky. So basically, as long as they tried it on, they would buy it. Until Snake wore a pure white suit. Because of Gu Mingming's memories, he knew that she was a fan of those Korean dramas where people wore suits and suits. From how she stared blankly at him changing his clothes today, that was indeed the case. As a result, most of the clothes that Snake tried on were suits, and most of them successfully attracted her attention. There were even a few sets that this girl was infatuated with. But when this pure white suit appeared, Gu Mingming was stunned for a few seconds. Then she suddenly burst into laughter. She laughed so hard that she could not even stand straight. Aside from the topic, today's update ended. Chapter 892. Snake's hair stood on end from Gu Mingming's laughter. He turned back to look at himself in the mirror helplessly, but did not see anything strange. He frowned, feeling somewhat disappointed. Gu Mingming laughed for a long time without any intention of stopping, so Snake could only walk to her and pinch her little face. He pulled her into his shadow and asked, "What are you laughing at?" Snake's pressure was too strong and Gu Mingming was instantly terrified. She did not dare to laugh anymore. Holding back her laughter, she lowered her head and shook her head slightly, saying, No, Senior is very handsome. You look handsome no matter what you wear." Snake gritted his teeth and said, "Have you seen the work manual? What will happen if you lie to me?" The evil treaty of 794, Gu Mingming looked up at Snake, thinking that she could not afford to pay the compensation fee of $450,000, so she chose to be honest. "Actually, I'm not laughing at anything, I just feel that wearing a full white suit makes me look like a famous and iconic character." Snake quickly tried to recall which celebrity's iconic white suit was worn, but no matter how he thought about it, he could not think of anything, so he could only raise his brows and ask, "Who?" "KFC," Gu Mingming said as she laughed. She could not hold it in any longer, clutching her stomach and rolling on the sofa in laughter. "Gu Mingming." Snake enunciated her name word by word. Gu Mingming also knew that it was not nice to laugh at her boss like that, but she really could not control herself. For the sake of her own job, Gu Mingming laughed while trying to salvage the situation. "Senior, listen to me, even if it's KFC, it must be the KFC that was at its peak when it was young, ha. Yes, the most handsome KFC is definitely you, ha ha ha." If it was anyone else who dared to be so presumptuous in front of Snake, they would probably be crushed to the point where not even their bones would be left. But for some reason, facing Gu Mingming who was laughing like an idiot, Snake could not find any trace of anger in his heart. Instead, the corners of his lips curled up along with her laughter, and his heart was filled with joy. Releasing Gu Mingming's chin, Snake returned to the fitting room to change out of the white suit and wore his initial set of clothes. When he came out, he said to the salesgirl, "The clothes I picked just now, each one is matched with 10 sets of women's clothing. They are her size." With that, he pulled Gu Mingming away without waiting for the counter lady's reply. Gu Mingming was dumbfounded. Snake had tried on at least a dozen sets of clothes just now. If each set was paired with 10 sets of female clothing, that would be more than 100 sets of new clothes. Damn, he's so rich that he's inhumane. The clothes sold here were so expensive. Gu Mingming's liver would tremble for a few days just to buy one set, let alone 100 sets. Even if she was sold, she wouldn't be worth the price of the clothes. I don't want new clothes. You can buy them for yourself. Don't buy them for me. I don't want them. Snake paused and turned to look at Gu Mingming. I bought all my clothes that you like. I spent so much effort to please you, shouldn't you repay me a little? Ah. Gu Mingming felt that when she was talking to Snake, her intelligence was always not online. She could not understand what he was saying at all. He roared inwardly, speak human language, hey. Chapter 893. Snake's tone was light, like a feather caressing the tip of her heart. His warm breath sprayed into Gu Mingming's nose, making it extremely ambiguous. In the future, you are only allowed to wear the clothes I buy and use the things I buy. From head to toe, you are only allowed to stick my label. Gu Mingming blinked and asked awkwardly, are you trying to keep me as your mistress? Snake's smile deepened as he savored the word, keep. He thought for a while and said, that's not impossible. Gu Mingming lifted her leg and kicked Snake's calf. She lowered her body and crawled out from under Snake's armpit. After running for 7 to 8 steps, she turned around to look at Snake and said, let me tell you, I buy my strength and not my body. If you want to play with the unspoken rules of the workplace, you can find someone else. I'm not going to be crazy with you. Snake was not annoyed and instead smiled. He turned around and leaned against the car door, crossing his arms and looking at Gu Mingming. Tiske, even his Tuming's angry look was so pleasing to the eye. She was a good girl with principles. Tuming, come here. Snake waved his hand and then put his palm up, waiting for Gu Mingming to put her hand in. Gu Mingming took another step back and looked like she would rather die than submit to Snake. Snake was not in a hurry and just smiled. You are now my personal assistant and need to accompany me to all kinds of occasions. In other words, you are my face. If you dress shabbily, you will be embarrassing me. So, these clothes can only be considered as work clothes and were given to you by the company. Gu Mingming thought about it. She felt that there was nothing wrong with Snake's words. Blushing, she felt that she might have overreacted just now. Clearing her throat, she said, that label, whatever. Snake still maintained his inviting posture with his palm up and continued to answer. My personal assistant from head to toe, every detail must be perfected. Your own taste. Gu Mingming looked at Snake's indescribable expression and then looked down at her own clothes. She blushed. A Taobao t-shirt with 29 free shipping, a pair of jeans with 69 free shipping, a pair of shoes with the same style that he bought last year on Double 11, and a large school bag that he bought at the night market. This outfit really doesn't match the identity of a big CEO. Snake was not in the mood to mock Gu Mingming. The pain she had suffered over the past decade would only make his heart ache. Seeing that she was not coming over, Snake strode forward and grabbed her little hand, bringing her into his arms. His large hand gently caressed the back of her neck and his lips pressed against her ear, whispering, the next time I call for you, you have to come over to my side, do you understand? Snake's embrace was so warm that Gu Mingming forgot to struggle free. For some strange reason he responded with an N, but he had no idea what his current situation was. The corners of Snake's lips curled up, his eyes filled with gentleness. His voice was so gentle that it numbed all of Gu Mingming's bones, but he did not realize how much affection and infatuation he had revealed. You can't go back on what you've promised me. I've waited long enough. One more second. I don't want to wait any longer. So, the next time I call for you, if you don't come to me, I will come to you. Gu Mingming's heart felt as if it was being tugged by someone. That violent trembling made her feel a little dazed. It was as if something was surging through his heart, but it was too intense and he couldn't hold on to it. Chapter 894. The next morning, Gu Mingming refused to take Snake's car to school no matter what. Snake did not force her and only sent her to the bus stop. Then he watched her board the bus and drove his sports car slowly behind the bus. The bus stopped at one stop after another, and he also stopped at one stop after another. Until Gu Mingming alighted from the bus and turned around to see a flamboyant person sitting in the flashy sports car, waving at her and smiling happily. Gu Mingming turned and walked away, pretending that she did not know that flamboyant person driving the sports car. The moment she entered school, Gu Mingming felt strange. Everyone seemed to be pointing fingers at her and gossiping about something. By right, other than a few girls in the same dormitory, not many of her classmates would be able to call out her name. How did she suddenly become the center of attention? Gu Mingming looked left and right looking confused. She thought to herself, perhaps it was because Snake ran into the classroom and hugged her for the entire lesson yesterday? She did not take it to heart and just quickened her footsteps to the classroom. She sat in a corner and leaned on the table, burying her face in her arms. She could not sleep well last night because she had been thinking about all sorts of things. Now she was so sleepy that she fell asleep unknowingly. She did not even know when Snake had sat beside her again. This lesson was Professor Zhang's. This professor was an old pedant and old-fashioned. He always talked about respecting teachers and principals and paid great attention to class discipline. In his class, all university students were scolded like kindergartners. They had to sit properly or else he would feel that they did not respect him. Then, the graduation grade would be, ha. Gu Mingming should have sat in the corner and buried her head in sleep. But this girl was so sleepy yesterday that not only was she sleeping, she was also snoring. Although her snoring was soft and looked especially cute to Snake, to Professor Zhang, it was an affront. A piece of chalk was thrown towards Gu Mingming and was caught by Snake in midair. You. Professor Zhang's eyes widened in anger. Snake stood up slowly and said, she studied very late last night and needs to catch up on her sleep now. This was the first time Professor Zhang had been contradicted and he was furious. But Snake did not give him a chance to speak and continued, I will make up for the content of this lesson for her alone, it will not affect the professor's performance. Professor Zhang was so angry that the hand he pointed at Snake with was trembling. Snake chuckled and said, I suggest the professor to continue with your class, don't waste everyone's time and don't disturb her sleep. Professor Zhang slammed the blackboard eraser on the podium and said angrily, I won't let her pass the final evaluation. Snake slowly sat down and chuckled. I hope your term of office can last till the end of the semester. Gu Mingming raised her head in a daze and asked with sleepy eyes, Huh? What happened? Snake rubbed her little head and draped his jacket over her head. It's all right, continue sleeping. Professor Zhang was infuriated and felt that he had no way out of this embarrassing situation. Hence, he flicked his sleeves and left, leaving the rest of the class to look at each other in dismay. They watched as Snake watched Gu Mingming sleep for an entire lesson. Chapter 895. I was afraid that someone would be beside you while you were sleeping, so I came over to guard my position. Snakel smiled at Gu Mingming, his voice gentle and calm with a tinge of sweetness. Goosebumps rose all over Gu Mingming's body. She shrugged her shoulders and said, Hey, get up, I need to go to the toilet. Snakel stood up and made way for Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming turned sideways and Snakel followed behind her. Seeing how awkward she was because of him, the corners of his lips curled up and his eyes were filled with love. Gu Mingming entered the toilet and randomly found a cubicle to close the door. She had just squatted down when she heard the discussion outside the door. Did you hear? That kept woman. Do I even need to hear? Her photo has already been posted on the school forum. TSK. She usually doesn't show off much, but she's actually a powerful vixen. Isn't that so? Confessing to the basketball captain in the morning, getting intimate with the coolest school hunk in class, and still meeting her sugar daddy after school? She's pretty good. Isn't that so? The basketball captain's stamina is famous for not collapsing overnight. The coolest school hunk used to be in the swimming team, his body is also amazing. I wonder who her sugar daddy is, dating 3 men in a day. She's really like a wolf and a tiger. Gu Mingming was confused at first, but the more she heard, the more she felt like they were talking about her. But she knew about the confession to the basketball captain. She also knew about the relationship with the coolest school hunk. What the hell was a kept woman? Taking out her phone, Gu Mingming hurriedly logged into the school forum. Title: First-year student has a powerful background, luxury car, villa, and exhibition. There are photos to prove the truth. Gu Mingming clicked on it and felt like she was struck by lightning. There was a photo of her standing at the entrance of Snakel's villa. At that time, Snakel was at the entrance, but he couldn't be seen due to the angle. He could only see her standing in a daze at the open door of the villa, about to walk in. There was also a photo of her alighting at the entrance of the exhibition, as well as various branded paper bags neatly stacked on the ground, then tied together with a red silk cloth, with a label on it that said, to Gu Mingming. The accompanying text was all sorts of incitement and speculation, with the general direction being that she was kept by a rich businessman. There were countless scandals such as selling yourself in junior high school, having 5 abortions in 3 years of high school and so on. Gu Mingming held onto her phone, so angry that her fingers were trembling. Her entire body was ice cold, but she could not say a single word. Her tears fell uncontrollably, but she could not cry out. For so many years, no matter how hard life had been, she had at least persisted in exchanging money through labor and being a good girl. You can be poor, but you can never be cheap. Self-respect and self-respect were the few things she had left. How could these ignorant people trample on her like this? The bell for class had already rung, and the people in the restroom had already left. Snake, who was waiting at the door, frowned. Not seeing Gu Mingming coming out, he walked in. "Tu Ming?" Snake called softly. Gu Mingming did not say a word and just stood up hurriedly to pull up her pants. "Tu Ming?" Snake raised his voice. Gu Mingming wiped away her tears, not wanting Snake to see her crying. Chapter 896. This tiny sound successfully attracted Snake's attention. Without another word, he lifted his leg and kicked the bathroom door open. Looking at Gu Mingming, who was curled up in a corner crying her eyes out, Snake frowned in heartache. He hugged Gu Mingming in his arms and caressed her back, ignoring her struggles. "Don't cry, you're so ugly. Don't bother about me, sob sob sob. Let go of me, if someone sees this I won't be able to explain myself. Let go, let go." The more Gu Mingming struggled, the tighter Snake hugged her. Until she could no longer exert any strength and lay obediently on his shoulders, twitching and shaking, Snake then said, "Tell me, why are you crying?" Gu Mingming looked at Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming refused to speak and just kept crying. Snake didn't want to force her and just carried her to the underground car park. He stuffed her into the car and brought her back to the villa. By the time they reached the villa, Gu Mingming's emotions had more or less calmed down. Her nasal voice was still very strong, but she no longer cried. "Why did you come back? We only had one lesson." Snake glanced sideways at her and said, "I am the boss, I will arrange whatever I say. You just have to obey and don't have to question." Without explaining further, Snake pushed Gu Mingming into her room and said, "Shower and change your clothes. I don't like to see you in such a disheveled and pathetic state." With that, he slammed the door shut and returned to his own room. Just one lesson? Ah, so what? How could he let others see her crying? Her tears could only fall in front of him. Picking up his phone, Snake dialed a number and said, 3 minutes. Find out what happened to her today." With that, Snake hung up without waiting for the other party's reply. Sitting on the big office chair, Snake crossed his hands on the office table. His gaze was cold and sinister, and he exuded a violent aura. It was as if the surrounding air was filled with black particles, making one feel suffocated and terrified. A minute and a half later, Snake's phone screen lit up. Other than the post on the school forum, there was also the list of people discussed in the female washroom and the content of the discussion. Of course, the attached page clearly listed who posted the post on the school forum and where the photo came from. Snake's finger lightly brushed past the name on the last page. The corners of his lips curled up slightly, as if the death god was announcing the arrival of darkness. Gu Mingming changed into a clean set of clothes after washing up. Snake had thrown away her previous clothes, so if Gu Mingming didn't want to run around naked, she could only wear the clothes Snake had bought for her yesterday. The good thing was that they were all arranged in sets, so there was no need to worry that Gu Mingming would randomly dress Chanel into a killer. When she came out of the room, Snake was already standing at the door. Looking at the pink dress Gu Mingming was wearing, his lips curled up slightly. Yeah, it matched his clothes perfectly. The simple ponytail was full of youthfulness and wildness. It was far less exquisite than some girls who would play tricks on their hairstyles, but it made people feel natural and comfortable. Snake was satisfied with Gu Mingming's outfit. He held her hand and returned to the sports car, heading straight for school. Chapter 897. Snake parked the car and brought Gu Mingming into the performing arts class. There were already 2 rows of bodyguards dressed in black standing guard at the entrance of the classroom. The principal and a group of administrators were already waiting at the entrance. Upon seeing Snake, the principal bowed respectfully and did not say a word. The group of administrators followed behind Snake in an orderly manner according to their positions and entered the large classroom in a single file. The performing arts class was a rather ostentatious one. The students in this class were all handsome and pretty, and all of them were children of a certain family background. They might not necessarily walk the path of an artist in the future, but were sent here to cultivate their aura. The lectern on the podium had already been removed and replaced by a large chair. Snake turned around and sat down. Gu Mingming did not understand and just stood quietly behind Snake with a dumbfounded expression. Snake's gaze swept across the faces of everyone in the classroom, then curled his lips coldly. His voice was so cold that there was not a single trace of emotion. Every word he said was like a sharp blade made of ice, wreaking havoc on everyone's hearts. My Tumeng said that everyone has a fixed label on them. The one that stuck on me previously seemed to be the mute school hunk. No one dared to reply. It was so quiet that even the flow of air seemed to be noises, and breathing was unnecessary. I'm not very satisfied with this label, so I want to change it. Snake leaned against the back of the chair lazily. With a pull of his large hand, Gu Mingming fell into his arms. She wanted to struggle, but Snake did not give her the chance. He wrapped one arm around her waist and allowed her to struggle, but she could not leave his embrace at all. Snake leisurely admired Gu Mingming's every move until she completely gave up struggling and obediently nestled in his arms. He then continued in satisfaction. I feel that the label of holding a grudge and covering up for my shortcomings is not bad and suits me very well. In order to let everyone have a deep impression of this new label, I have decided that from today onwards, I will kill anyone who dares to touch my Tumeng. There was a series of gasps and the temperature in the classroom dropped by a few degrees. The thread regarding Gu Mingming was a hot topic in the school forum. Although it was suddenly deleted 20 minutes ago, there were thousands of people discussing it. In this classroom, everyone felt insecure. Snake's gaze scanned through them one by one and finally landed on the face of the school belle, Missouri Bebe. Let's start with you. Mo Bebe shuddered and bit her lower lip as she glared at Snake. She wanted to tell herself not to be afraid. Although Snake was handsome, he was just a university student and there was nothing to be afraid of. Wasn't it just standing up for his girlfriend? There were many people who were willing to stand up for her. It's okay. But the headmaster and the others were standing on the podium, but he was sitting. The rows of black-clothed men at the door also told Mo Bebe that she was too naive. And the source of all this fear came from the person sitting on the podium. He was like the uncrowned king of hell, unrestrained, killing at will, crushing everything and looking down on everything. Snake'll glanced sideways and with a glance, the man in black at the door walked to the front of the podium with an iPad and connected it to the classroom's projection equipment using Bluetooth. Then the big screen showed erotic pictures one after another. The main character of the pictures was none other than the school belle, Missouri Bebe. Chapter 898. Everyone could hear the deeper meaning behind Snake's emphasis on the word miss. When he looked at Mo Bebe again, his gaze was filled with obscenity and disdain. Impossible, this photo is a composite. It must be. Mo Bebe was making her final struggle. Her live stream was always burned after viewing it, so there was no way there would be any evidence. This was at most a screenshot of those otakus as long as she denied it. But Snake smiled and said, I don't want my Tumeng to see such filthy things, it hurts her eyes. So I will send the original video up later. As Snake said that, the man in black specially opened a folder. There was a short MP4 video in it, lasting 49 minutes and 26 seconds. The cover was a close-up of Mo Bebe's underwear. Ming Ming's face paled and she bit her lower lip, unable to say a word. But Snake did not let her off and continued, I heard that you can get Miss Mo's contact details by sending 10 yachts. 50 yachts to invite Miss Mo out for a one-to-one live broadcast? Yeah, I contacted a few Miss Mo's very close friends and they gave me some especially exciting treasured videos. I feel that they are really too good, so I have already sent them to Miss Mo's parents and the leader of your parents' unit as a gift. Mo Bebe looked at Snake, her gaze starting to slacken. She trembled all over but could not say a single word. All right. Miss Mo has taken such good care of my Tumeng, so in return, I have already invited a few, especially close friends of yours to the scene. They will cooperate with Miss Mo to showcase your acting talent to everyone. In order to realize Miss Mo's dream of becoming a star and let you shoot to fame, this performance will be broadcasted live on the livestream platform. Every student in the school will have a VIP account, and it has already been sent to everyone's phones in the form of text messages. With that, Snake carried Gu Mingming and stood up. He was as elegant as a prince in a European castle. He smiled and said, Then I shall not disturb everyone from enjoying the exciting show. Before he finished his sentence, Snake had already carried Gu Mingming out of the classroom. A group of school leaders followed Snake out and the girls in the classroom also jogged out. However, a few brave boys stayed in the classroom and had already started to lay their hands on the former goddess. After everyone had left the classroom, 5 wretched and greasy middle-aged men wearing masks walked in. Gu Mingming could not hear any of the cries for help and groans coming from the classroom due to the distance. She only thought that Snake was just scaring her. Snake carried Gu Mingming into the principal's office. The school leaders stood in a row in front of Snake. Snake stretched out his hand and took a name list from the hands of the man in black. He passed it to the principal and said, "The school's atmosphere should be rectified, what do you think?" "Principal?" The principal respectfully took the name list, lowered his head and said, "You are right, I will definitely deal with the disciplinary issues seriously." Snake nodded and did not want to say anything more. He was not in a good mood because Gu Mingming did not want him to hug her. Holding her little hand, he stood up and walked out. When he reached the door, he suddenly stopped and turned to look at the principal, saying, "Professor Zhang? Professor Zhang will reach the retirement age next week. The school has already given up on the counter-employment plan. He will leave this Friday." The principal answered directly. Chapter 899. The scene froze at the back view of Snake leading Gu Mingming away. The white fog filled the air again, sealing the empty space. Gu Mingming stretched lazily and stood up with her palm facing upwards. "Daddy, pocket money." The beast deity chuckled, as if he was looking at his own willful daughter. He slapped Gu Mingming's palm. "I feel that Hypnosis, From Beginner to Expert, is not a good book. Daddy, can you recommend a more practical one?" Gu Mingming raised her brow. She looked at the beast deity with a sneaky smile and replied, "Oh?" The beast deity lifted his finger. There was a small white dot on his index finger. It was not tangible and looked as if his finger was glowing. It was not glaring. The glow was gentle and light, a little like pearls under the sun with a hazy glow. The beast deity tapped Gu Mingming's brow lightly. Gu Mingming's eyes instantly lost focus and she fell into a state of nightmare. It was as if something was rapidly squeezing into her brain. It was so fast that Gu Mingming could not react in time. She only felt many things filling up her thoughts. It was as if she suddenly knew something she did not know in the past. It was about a minute, but to Gu Mingming it was a long time that could be counted in microseconds. When the beast deity removed his finger from Gu Mingming's brow, Gu Mingming's eyes slowly regained their focus. Blinking, Gu Mingming looked at the beast deity in a daze. The beast deity chuckled. "How is it, my dear daughter's cheating cheat? Are you satisfied?" Gu Mingming supported her head with one hand and slowly extended a finger with the other. She waved it twice in front of the beast deity, then suddenly laughed. "Whose memories did you implant into my brain?" Gu Mingming's expression changed. The beast deity placed his index finger on his lips and gestured for her to keep quiet. More accurately, it is not anyone's memory. It is just a portion of someone's knowledge and her own research insights. Damn it, why did this portion of knowledge and research insights seem to be related to bewitching spells? Was there a need to ask? Wasn't the answer obvious? Gu Mingming wrapped her arms around the beast deity's neck and kissed him on the cheek. "You are abusing your power for personal gain. But Dad, I really like you more and more." Sure enough, people with a biological father are different. The beast deity rubbed Gu Mingming's little head gently. "I forcefully dragged you into the beast world and destroyed your original life. I made you suffer so much and suffer so much. Father will also feel guilty." Gu Mingming chuckled and said, "Actually, it's nothing much. Although there have been many troubling matters recently, at least I have family here. It was better than being all alone in the original world, forsaken and helpless. But I think it's better for you to hold on to this guilty heart. This is more beneficial to me." The beast deity smiled benevolently and nodded. All right." Gu Mingming released the beast deity's neck and was just about to leave when she paused. She turned to look at the beast deity and asked, "Oh, that's right, Father, can't we really send Wabi to Snake's side?" The beast deity was taken aback, as if he did not expect Gu Mingming to mention this. Chapter 900. The beast deity just nodded and did not say a word. Gu Mingming closed her eyes and fell backwards with her back straight. A wave of dizziness accompanied by the weightlessness of free fall made Gu Mingming frown. She gathered her limbs together and sat up abruptly. She got up too suddenly and her head was a little dizzy. Her body tilted and she was leaning into a warm embrace. "You're awake?" Before she finished her sentence, a cup of water was already placed in front of Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng lowered her head to drink a mouthful and then looked up to meet Elvis's deep and gentle eyes. Chuckling, Gu Mengmeng kissed Elvis's chin and said, "It's so good to see you the moment I open my eyes." Elvis felt a surge of warmth in his heart because of Gu Mengmeng's words, moistening the gentleness and pampering in his blue eyes. He kissed her brows and said, "I am always here. You will definitely be able to see me whenever you want to." Gu Mengmeng smiled and nodded in agreement. Then she leaned into his arms and said, "How long did I sleep for this time?" 4 days. Elvis asked worriedly, "Are you hungry?" "A little." Gu Mengmeng nodded and answered. Elvis rubbed Gu Mengmeng's limbs to help her wake up so that her body would not be able to react after sleeping for too long and it would be uncomfortable to get off the bed directly. "Leah saw that you have the intention to wake up and has already gone to prepare food. Wake up a little and we will go downstairs." Gu Mengmeng nodded and asked again, "Did anything happen during the 4 days I was asleep?" Elvis shook his head lightly and said, "Nothing much, it's just that Leah was bored," and snatched the authority from Oakley's hands. Gu Mengmeng almost choked on her own saliva. He had already initiated a coup and he still called it nothing much? Elvis poked Gu Mengmeng's brows lovingly and said, "Why are you so nervous? With Lee's methods, are you still afraid that he killed Oakley and snatched the authority?" Gu Mengmeng felt that he was right. Leah rarely solved his problems by killing. He had many ways to make people automatically do things according to his wishes. But, Cole would allow Leah to suppress the authority so easily? Gu Mengmeng expressed her doubts. Elvis paused and smiled helplessly. He looked up at Gu Mengmeng and said, "He has already achieved his goal, hasn't he?" "Huh?" Gu Mengmeng looked at Elvis in confusion. Elvis rubbed Gu Mengmeng's calf as he said, "If he wanted Sauter's political power, he could just launch an attack to seize it. Why would he need to control Oakley to achieve his goal? Isn't it too roundabout?" "You mean?" Gu Mengmeng still did not quite understand. Elvis used the beast's skin to cover one of Gu Mengmeng's calves properly, before rubbing the other one. He said, "They are enemies but they don't want to start a war. The best way is to display your abilities and bargaining chips to let the other party weigh the pros and cons, isn't that right?" "Ha!" Gu Mengmeng chuckled. "So Cole is telling me that no matter how much I dislike him, as long as I can't bear to part with Qixin, Sandy and Oakley, I can't do anything to him, right?" Although Elvis was unwilling, he still nodded and said, "He has the people you care about in his hands, so we can only be led by the nose by him. It's a little passive." "So Leah took back control of Sauter, to snatch Oakley back?" Elvis lightly scratched Gu Mengmeng's little nose and said, "Xiaoming is so smart. Aside from the topic, yes, Snake is very domineering, isn't he? Does everyone like him? Snake is no longer a snake now. Oh, he's a normal human now. Like it if you like it, give me the ticket." Chapter 901. Leah was going to handle Oakley's matters, so Gu Mengmeng did not want to bother too much about it. His situation was different from Sandy's. Sandy's consciousness was controlled by Cole through hypnosis, and it was not voluntary. But Oakley, he did not look like he was being controlled. Gu Mengmeng did not know what difficulties he had, but she had given Oakley a chance to ask her for help. As long as he was willing to be honest with her, she would help him, wouldn't she? But he still chose to stand opposite her. She had to admit that Oakley's decision made Gu Mengmeng's heart turn cold. As friends, Gu Mengmeng would not leave him in the lurch. However, the relationship between them could only be described as friends. The familiar aroma of food wafted from downstairs. Gu Mengmeng's entire body had been rubbed by Elvis, and her blood had already circulated through her entire body. Gu Mengmeng felt refreshed. Stretching herself, she allowed Elvis to carry her downstairs. Leah looked up and smiled at Gu Mengmeng, his eyes curved into crescents. His fluffy and white tail swayed behind him, showing that he was in an extremely good mood. Scooping a bowl of food, he held a small wooden spoon and fed Gu Mengmeng mouthful by mouthful. Gu Mengmeng was already used to this kind of behavior. Every time she went to see the beast deity, she would sleep for a few days, and the first meal after waking up would always be Leah feeding her personally. It was as if this was the only way he could ensure that she was full and feel at ease. This seemed like some kind of obsessive-compulsive disorder. But it was not a big deal, so Gu Mingming did not intend to correct him. After eating and drinking to her heart's content, Gu Mingming then asked, "Where are Huda and his brothers? Where did they run off to?" Leah replied, "They went hunting with Burke, saying that they wanted to prepare more food for Burke's old tribe. That way Burke would not have to suffer too much when we leave." "Aren't there 2 other females in the old tribe? Haven't they found a new partner after so long?" Gu Mingming asked casually. Leah chuckled and said, "The males of the Snow Fox tribe will not marry with females from other tribes. If their entire tribe returned to Saint Nazir with us, there might still be hope. But here, that tribe's old, weak, sick and handicapped can only be taken care of by Burke alone." Gu Mingming did not say anything else and just nodded silently. It was good to let the 3 little ones help their master Burke. After all, Gu Mingming owed him for what happened previously. Even though Cole had plotted to implicate him, it was an undeniable fact that she had also made use of Burke. Perhaps keeping her away from Borg would help him the most. Otherwise, who knew if Cole's next target would be him? "Oh yes, Elvis told me that you have regained control of Sauter," Gu Mingming said. Leah washed a fruit and passed it to Gu Mingming. Seeing how she took a bite with her cheeks puffed up like a cute little squirrel, he could not help but smile. Then he nodded and said, "Yeah, after all, I am the 9th highness of the Snow Fox tribe. Those old foxes want to maintain the honor of their tribe, so they will not let me be under a lynx. So all I did was refuse their offer and they pushed me to the pinnacle of power." The human heart is the easiest thing to grasp. Gu Mingming asked, "What did they suggest to you?" Chapter 902. Gu Mingming stared at Leah with her eyes wide open. "You agreed?" Leah chuckled seductively. He pinched Gu Mingming's little face. "Didn't I say that I just didn't reject?" Gu Mingming didn't understand. Didn't rejecting mean he agreed? Leah leaned forward and pressed his lips against Gu Mingming's left ear. "Not taking the initiative, not rejecting, not taking responsibility." Gu Mingming instinctively blurted out. "Scumbag." Leah shrugged his shoulders and chuckled. Wouldn't it be extremely foolish to treat those old foxes with a kind and beautiful heart? Gu Mingming thought about it. Those old foxes in Sauter would only think about their own benefits. When had they ever treated Leah with any sincerity? When Cole set up a trap to harm Leah, they acted like everyone was kicking him when he was down. None of them stood up to speak up for Leah. After that, when Leah chased Cole away, they acted like the monkeys would scatter when the tree was down. They completely forgot how they had relied on Cole to do whatever he wanted all these years. Now, raising such conditions to Leah meant that he must have already made a deal with Cole, sacrificing Oakley in exchange for a more advantageous situation. No one should laugh at anyone. No one should look down on anyone. After all, no one was that much nobler than anyone else. They could make use of Leah. Why couldn't Leah make use of them? Leah pecked Gu Mingming's little face. "Leave these things to me. Don't worry about it." Gu Mingming nodded. "I don't want to care about government affairs. It's too troublesome. What I want to ask is, which female in the tribe has the highest purity of fox seductive fragrance?" Leah shifted his body backward to create some distance between him and Gu Mingming. He scrutinized Gu Mingming's little face. His smile gradually spread. "So, the beast deity taught you the bewitching technique?" Gu Mingming nodded in acknowledgement. Leah lowered his head and chuckled. He covered his lips and his gaze shifted. Gu Mingming was confused by Lee's gaze. "What's wrong?" Leah didn't say anything. He just shifted his gaze upwards and met Elvis's eyes. Gu Mingming followed Lee's gaze to Elvis. She realized that Elvis's face was so red that it was about to bleed. "Hubby, are you not feeling well?" Elvis coughed twice and turned his face away. Gu Mingming found it very strange and turned to ask Leah, "Don't keep me guessing what happened?" Leah rested his chin on one hand and looked at Elvis. "Sai, first partner Elvis, the head of our family is asking me a question. Can I answer it or not?" Gu Mingming could clearly see the teasing look on Lee's face. Although she did not know what it was to make Elvis blush, she was still very interested to know. The burning spirit of gossip lit up Gu Mingming's eyes. She secretly rubbed her palms together and said, "Tell me quickly, I will back you up. What are you afraid of?" Leah deliberately nodded his head slowly, his large tail swaying behind him. That look was very despicable. Stretching out his index finger, Leah lifted Gu Mingming's chin gently. His long and affectionate eyes stared at Gu Mingming's bright eyes as he said in a low voice, "The purest fox seductive fragrance in this world belongs to you." Chapter 903. Leah nodded and smiled ambiguously. "Didn't you realize what you inherited from me?" Gu Mingming was stunned for 2 seconds before turning to look behind her. Disappointment, Gu Mingming pouted. "No," Leah knocked Gu Mingming's head. "What do you mean by such a disappointed expression? You don't like the fox seductive fragrance you inherited from me?" Gu Mingming shook her head. "Didn't you say that the fox seductive fragrance is emitted from the tail?" "But I don't have a tail." Leah chuckled. "The fox seductive fragrance of males is emitted from the tail. For females it's from—" Leah was halfway through his sentence when his gaze shifted downwards. It stopped between Gu Mingming's legs. Gu Mingming's face flushed red. She used both her hands to block Lee's line of sight. "Perverted." Leah waved his hand and held onto Gu Mingming's slender wrist. "I'm perverted just by looking at you through your skirt? Then what does it count as if I saw you without a skirt on? I even ate you before. What does it count as?" Lee's words made Gu Mingming extremely embarrassed and furious. But damn it, her body actually reacted when she recalled that night of lust. Leah raised his eyebrows. The corners of his lips curled upwards. My baby Gu Mingming sent me an invitation, so you want it now?" "No." Gu Mingming retracted her hand shyly. She felt too ashamed to face anyone. So she buried her face into Elvis's chest. But what did she see when she lowered her head? A small tent erected by a beast-skin skirt could accommodate a circus. Damn it. Gu Mingming jumped up from Elvis's arms. She took 2 steps back and sat at the corner of the wall. She laughed dryly at Elvis and Leah. She had an expression that said, "Don't come any closer. If you come any closer I'll scream." Leah laughed. "I have a certain immunity to the fox seductive fragrance, so it's not much of an effect. But someone?" Gu Mingming looked at Elvis. She realized that his face had turned even redder. She suddenly thought of something. She laughed dryly. "So how did you find out that I inherited the fox seductive fragrance?" Leah looked at Elvis and said, "Great first partner, do you want to personally reenact the process of your cheating?" "Cheating?" Gu Mingming's face was filled with disbelief. Elvis would cheat? She didn't believe it. But Elvis, what was the meaning of not explaining and blushing instead? Leah pulled Elvis's left hand up and waved it in front of Gu Mingming, saying, "Here, this is that mistress. Mingming, do you want me to chop it?" Gu Mingming paused for 3 seconds before bursting out in laughter. "So you're saying that I released the fox seductive fragrance when I was unconscious?" Elvis couldn't resist it and had some indescribable interaction with his left hand? "Yeah." Leah nodded. He only agreed to a single room, but it made Elvis so embarrassed that his face was about to bleed. Gu Mingming held back her laughter and crawled towards Elvis on all fours like a Persian cat. She placed her hand on his chest and pushed lightly, causing Elvis to fall onto the ground. His entire body stiffened as he stared at Gu Mingming, who was messing around on his chest. She clearly knew that he was going crazy, but she still continued to ignite the fire, making him feel even more uncomfortable. You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.